session, so we will have a closed session report. Madam City Attorney.
All right, good evening. The council met in closed session pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.8 to have a conference with real property negotiators. The property was a vacant lot that does not have a street address. The property description is in the agenda if anybody is interested. The agency negotiator is City Manager Adam Perry. The negotiating parties are County of Los Angeles Tax Collector and Richard and Byron Seaver. Under negotiation was the price in terms of payment. And the reportable action is that final approval rests with the other party to the negotiations. If that deal closes, then the city will disclose the fact of the approval and the substance of the agreement upon inquiry by any person. The council also met in closed session pursuant to California Government Code 54956.9 D2 and E3 to confer with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation. This was on the potential class action by Carrie McCormick against virtually every local agency in the state of California that uses hers. And there's no reportable action on that item.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. And so the special meeting of the City Council is adjourned. And now it is 6:32, and I'll call the regular meeting of the Claremont City Council to order. I'd like to ask Councilmember Stark to lead us to the pledge.
Please rise and join me in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Stark. We'll move to a moment of silence. Do any members of the City Council have a personal intention for a moment of silence? Seeing none, I would ask all of you to join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. All right, so we are required to have a closed session report in our regular City Council meeting, and so I will ask the City Attorney to do it once again.
Okay, the City Council met pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.8, conference with real property negotiators. Property is a vacant lot, no street address, legal description is in the staff agenda. Agency negotiator, City Manager Adam Perry, negotiating parties, County of Los Angeles Tax Collector, and Richard and Byron Seaver. Under negotiation was the price in terms of payment. And the reportable action is that final approval rests with the other parties of negotiations. If the deal closes, the city will disclose the fact of the approval and substance of the agreement upon inquiry by any person. And then number 2, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2 and E3, the council met with to confer with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation. This was regarding the threatened class action by Carrie McCormick. And there was no reportable action.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. And so we'll move to our ceremonial matters, presentations, and announcements. We have several ceremonial matters this evening, and it's our pleasure to welcome 2 new commissioners. So we'll begin with Bob Perry, who's been appointed to the Architecture Commission. Bob, if you can join the City Council at the front of the dais so we can introduce you to the community. All right, so Bob Perry is a practicing landscape architect, renowned horticultural author, and educator. He received a landscape architecture degree from Cal Poly Pomona and a master's degree in LA from UC Berkeley. Bob is currently Professor Emeritus of Landscape Architecture at Cal Poly Pomona. He's also teaching landscape architecture courses at USC, while also continuing to practice as a landscape architect. Bob is also well known for his book, Landscape Plants for California Gardens, an illustrated reference of plants for California landscapes. Bob is also a longtime resident of Claremont and serves on the board of the Claremont Heritage, where he provides advice on historically appropriate and water-wise landscape selection. His prior service on the Architectural Commission from 2014 to 2022 helped provide the city with the statement landscaping we enjoy along Foothill Boulevard, among other things. It's my great pleasure to welcome one of the region's great plant experts back to the Architectural Commission, Bob Perry.
Thank you, and good evening. I don't know who wrote this wonderful testimony. The important thing is I'm happy to be back on the Architectural Commission. Really enjoy this city. Love to contribute my knowledge to it as best I can. And thank you for accepting me in this responsibility.
All right, I'd like to invite up Sal Ramos. He is joining us on the Traffic and Transportation Commission. He says he has the blessing to go home every day to his family and their miniature schnauzer, 4 parakeets, and 2 tortoises, and he must be building an ark in the backyard. His son Mateo and his daughters, Maya, like to play and have dad time, and they kind of spin around together. One of his enjoyments is walking around town together with his wife. Professionally, Sal has 18 years of experience in traffic maintenance and design. He is passionate about his family, community, and safety, since they're all intermingled from his perspective. He is very happy in serving the community his family belongs to and the city, and is very happy to have be part of the city family. So welcome to the Traffic Transportation Commission.
Hello everybody, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and I'm happy and excited to be here.
Both of you come over, we'll take a picture with them, we'll step back. Okay. So we have a full ceremonial session here tonight. I'd like to recognize the Kiwanis Club of Claremont. And of course our colleagues at Kiwanians. So at this time I'd like to thank the Kiwanis Club of Claremont for their long-standing support of the Monday Night Concert Series. The Kiwanis Club was the series sponsor for our 8-week concert series that was wildly successful. The concerts provided an amazing opportunity for thousands of community members to gather in the park each week to enjoy a wide variety of musical genres. Additionally, the Kiwanis Club hosted their food concessions at the concerts, with the proceeds going directly to help fund this program. Their contribution for this year's totals at $11,000, and for that, we are very grateful. At this time, I'd like to invite Greg Sheffin and Raul Rodriguez. Greg is current president, and Raul is the treasurer. I'd like to share a little about the Kiwanis Club and the wonderful things they're doing for the community. Greg?
Well, I'm only president for 3 more days. This is my last official doing, I think. But Kiwanis is such a great service organization and does such great work in this community. And the Monday night concerts are a perfect example of not only our Kiwanis members, and we have 60 members plus in our club, but we also involve over 30 Key Club members from the high school. So we're doing really well with that, and they were heavily involved in this whole project over the summer. And it's fun to work with these kids, it really is. Other things that we do, we usually are involved with the Easter egg hunt, of course, put on by the city in the spring Easter egg hunt. And we usually have a pancake breakfast with that, and then of course, the big Seas Candy thing will be starting in November, and we will be opening that shop at the Richard Hibbard location once again the week before Thanksgiving, right? The week before Thanksgiving. Raul, do you want to add anything? No?
Hey, how about the auction?
Two words.
The auction, the online auction.
Oh, yes, we're doing an online auction, and I'm not sure what the date is. It starts the 2nd of October?
Second of October.
Yeah, so you can go to our website and participate in that.
But you'll be getting more information.
You'll be getting, yeah, just go to our website. All right, so I have a check here for $11,000.
A lot of hamburgers and hot
Well, thank you to Kiwanis. It's, we're truly blessed to have some great service organizations in town, and Kiwanis is one of those. And we appreciate the support that, and really the time, effort, and energy that Kiwanis puts in for the concerts in the park. So thank you for that. I recognize your next 3 days, and I have about 3 months, so. At least our numbers start the same.
Same number.
Same number, just different time. But thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Ed.
Oh, you know what? My apologies. Before you leave, can you stay up here and we're gonna take one more photo? Because I forgot, we did have a certificate for you. Oh, all right. All right, congratulations. Thank you so much. So as we talk about the Monday night concerts, I want to also recognize the Claremont Graduate University for their contribution to some of our other activities this summer. And we're proud to announce that in addition to sponsoring 6 individual concerts, the Claremont Graduate University generously sponsored 4 movie and park nights as well. Between the 2 events, Claremont Graduate University sponsored a total of $9,500. Thank you so much for your contribution to these programs. We're so happy that CGU decided to spend so many summer nights together with us this year. At this time, I'd like to invite the following CGU representative to be recognized and say a few words. We have Kristen Daly, Vice President of Advancement and Admissions, and Brian Elliott, Associate Vice President of Growth and Marketing. I invite you to say a few words.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much. We are so happy to be here tonight. Fun fact, Brian and I are from Claremont, born and raised, and product of Claremont Unified School District. Right? I know, we're like, oh, this is cool. And we've been working with each other for the past year, and we didn't know we went to high school together until we started working with one another. And we thought, what a great way to give back to the city that is near and dear to our hearts. And being in leadership positions at CGU enabled us that ability to give back to a city that means not only personally so much to both of us, but to CGU as a whole. We're approaching our centennial. The largest majority of our alumni are in the city of Claremont. Our students live here. It's such a wonderful relationship with the city. We just thought we can do more and be more involved as we approach our centennial. More things to come on that front. But thank you very much.
Fun facts about CGU. So we've been part of the Claremont community since 1925. So you can do the math on the centennial thing. Those guys have been backtracked on that. We're the second oldest of the Claremont colleges. We're actually the largest of the Claremont colleges in terms of enrolled students in average graduating class. So most people don't know that about us. What else? What are our other?
We have distinguished faculty, and you know them well. Former Professor Peter Drucker, the Drucker School of Management, and Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, the father of modern positive psychology and flow. And we're just looking forward to celebrating our successes and what we've done in the community and arts and humanities and education. And here in our centennial is part of the Claremont Centennial in terms of we see it as a community celebration. So again, when I say more to come on that front, it really will be a citywide celebration as we celebrate and near our centennial. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate all of
We need to come back, step back. Step back. Come on back. There we go. So, so I also have a certificate for you here, and it's very generous for CGU to be a sponsor with us, for us, I should say, for the movies in the park and the concerts. And I have to share that it was a surprise. It was a surprise to us, and it was really, just a really, really nice surprise. So thank you so much for that support. We appreciate the partnership, and we look forward to further collaboration with CGU in the coming years. And so thank you so much for your contribution. I'd like to present your certificate on behalf of the city. And we'll take a quick photograph with the certificate.
Should be fundraiser. Yeah. I got it.
Okay, boy, that was fun. And such generous organizations in our community. And it's part of what makes our community so special, so I appreciate that. Next, then we have the report from the upcoming events at the Helen Renwick Library.
Good evening, Mayor Reese and members of the council and community. This upcoming Saturday, September 30th, our friends at the Claremont Library are having their Claremont Author Event from 10 to 12 p.m. This will be a chance for you to meet with some of the wealth of local talent, local authors. You'll be able to purchase their books, meet and greet with the authors themselves, and have your books signed. And the current lineup includes Arthur Benjamin, Alan Calasi, Cynthia Chertos, Clyde Derrick, Michelle Dowd, B.H. Fairchild, Kimberly G., Judith Wright Favor, Eleanor Scott Myers, and Marissa Nicely. And then if you have a family, if you can stick around at the library a little longer that afternoon, also on Saturday we have our live ballet bilingual music show. Isabel Brazelton, who is the creator of the Baila Spanish music for kids, will be teaching Spanish vocabulary with interactive rhymes and games, so it'll be an event for the family, so please stop by for that. And then this month at the Los Angeles County Library, right now through October 14th, we are having our Citizenship Reading Challenge. This is an opportunity for adults to compete in a reading challenge, compete with yourself that is, and then learn more about citizenship and the immigration process through our guided reading book lists, through interactive challenges and other resources. This is an online event, so you can go to our lacountylibrary.org website to sign up. You can read 400 minutes to earn prizes. You get you get a badge for every 100 books or 100 minutes you read, and then you also get bonus badges if you participate in activities like checking out one of our citizenship kit bags or sharing your own immigration story or your family's immigration story. And then in October, which is just around the corner, on the first Friday, we have our monthly book club for adults. And this month's book is The Last Thing He Told Me. And if you're like me and you have to read the book before you watch the TV series, this is a very popular streaming series. So please think about stopping by at 10:30 on Friday, October 6th. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much. All right, so that concludes our ceremonial matters and presentations and announcements, and we'll move to upcoming federal holidays. Columbus Day is October 9th. However, Columbus Day is no longer celebrated in California, but it's still a federal holiday. Having said that, we'll move to the next item. And actually, before we go into the business portion of our meeting, I would like to announce that I do have a conflict of interest on item number 6 on the agenda tonight, and therefore will be using my right to reorder item 6, the appeal of the proposed garage addition. Reorder the items, and so we'll be placing item number 7 in front of item number 6, which would be the appeal would come first, and then the proposed development of a 56-unit condominium project by the Wilson Companies will be considered after that. All right. We'll move to item number 1 on the agenda, appointment of a member to the Planning Commission. And I'm excited, I work with Councilmember Leano, and I'm excited to share that with this appointment fills all commissions. And so we are fortunate that we have such an engaged and active community, and we appreciate that very, very much. So Councilmember Leano, any comments on that?
No comments, except thank you, Mr. Mayor, for working on this together, and congratulations to Mr. Davis for the recommendation. That's all.
Excellent. Are there any questions from council? Seeing no questions from council, I'm going to open up the public comment. Now is the time for those in the audience to comment on council item number 1. Are there any members of the public in the council chamber who wish to speak? This is on council item number 1, and it will be the appointment of the planning commissioner. Okay, seeing none in the chamber, we'll move to Zoom.
No one wishing to speak.
No one on Zoom. I will close public comment, bring it back to City Council on item number 1.
If there isn't any further discussion, I'm happy to move the selection committee's recommendation to appoint John Davis to the Planning Commission. And I appreciate Mr. Davis's willingness to serve on this recommending body.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Madam City Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Leona?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Medina?
Yes.
Councilmember Stark? Yes. Councilmember Calici?
Yes.
Mayor Reese?
Yes, so the motion passes unanimously, and that was the appointment of John Davis to the Planning Commission for a term to expire August 31st, 2027, which is a 4-year term. All right, we'll move to council assignment report. City council members may serve as representatives on regional organizations. This time is allocated for reports about their activities. For information on the council's local, intergovernmental, and regional appointments, please visit the city website. Do any members of the council have a report from their outside appointments? Councilmember Stark.
Last weekend, I participated in the League of Cities meeting in Sacramento along with my colleagues, Mayor Reese and Mayor Pro Tem Medina. It was a very informative conference, great keynote speaker. It was super worthwhile and a lot of fun as well. Our capital is beautiful.
Thank you. Any other comments, Mayor Pro Tem Medina?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to echo my colleague's words. The conference was exceptional. There's a lot of informative information, and I think I believe that we all left the conference knowing a little bit more how to lead our city.
Excellent. I do concur with both of you on that. And any other Councilman Leona?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick announcement, which is that Tri-City Mental Health will be beginning a new public engagement process that will involve stakeholders. And so if you're interested in being a part of the next long-term process of planning for the agency, I encourage you to sign up to be a stakeholder, to attend regular stakeholder meetings, which will be scheduled throughout the year. And if you're interested, please contact anyone at City Hall or the agency Tri-City. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So that will conclude our council assignment reports. And we'll move to our city manager report, Mr. Perry. May I have your report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Reese. In July of 2023, the city hired an urban forest consultant to perform a review of the city's tree policies and guidelines manual. The goal of the review is to recommend changes that meet industry standards while considering community character, fiscal responsibility, and compliance with state and local regulations. Revisions will go through a community input process, which will begin with a community meeting this Saturday, September 30th at 8 a.m. at the Alexander Hughes Center. Also beginning this week, Golden State Water will be removing and replacing a water main line on the south side of Foothill Boulevard from Indian Hill to Harvard Avenue. In an effort to reduce impacts to the public and businesses, this work will be performed at night from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. The first phase of work will require a closure of the southernmost eastbound travel lane as well as the bike lane. All lanes will be fully reopened at the end of every workday at 6 a.m. and this phase of work is anticipated to take 2 weeks to be completed. Construction on the Town Avenue Complete Streets Improvement Project continues to move forward with the first phase of construction. This phase consists of concrete removal and replacement, including drive approaches, sidewalks, and ADA ramps along the Town Avenue corridor from Foothill Boulevard to the 210 freeway. The contractor has completed the majority of the concrete improvements on the west side of Town Avenue and will be transitioning to work on the east side later this week. And finally, the Claremont Chamber of Commerce will host the 41st Annual Village Adventure Arts and Crafts Fair on Saturday, October 28th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The event features a wide range of arts and crafts for sale, as well as live music entertainment, local food and drink vendors, and unique arts, crafts, and apparel. The Village Adventure takes place in the village east of Indian Hill Boulevard between 1st and 4th Streets. Many of the streets in the village will be close to traffic and parking around the village will be impacted. For more information about this event, residents can visit ClaremontChamber.org. And that concludes my report this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the city manager? Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Perry, thank you for your report. I don't have a question specifically regarding the report, but I would like to have an update regarding the extension that the Motel 6 was granted. Where are they today, and how is that project moving along? If you can report on that, please.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. The last extension that Motel 6 had to complete the work that they were required to do pursuant to their landscape plan expired last Friday on the 22nd. They had requested an additional extension through November 22nd of this year to complete the work. And in recognition of the progress they have made, staff granted an extension, although it wasn't through the December date that they requested. We've given them through October 31st to complete the remainder of the work, which includes securing permits for drainage, irrigation, and electrical work, which must be secured by October 5th, completing the installation of all of the lighting elements under the plan no later than October 26th, and then completing all remaining landscape irrigation work, the new trash enclosure, and then securing all final inspections for the project by October 31st of this year.
I see, just one more question. August 31st, would that be considered, or will we view that as the final extension opportunity for the motel to complete their project?
The way that the extension has been granted requires that Motel 6 make significant progress towards completing the improvements by that date. If for any reason they are not, we have the ability to revoke the extension. We do have at the staff level the authorization to extend the deadline to November 22nd, which would represent the 6 months authorized under the authorization granted by the City Council when they heard the appeal on the landscape plan. So it would depend primarily on how much work they had accomplished in that period between now and October 31st.
Thank you very much for that.
Any other questions for the city manager? Seeing none, thank you, sir. And we'll move to public comment. City Council set aside this time for persons who wish to comment on items that are not listed on the agenda but are within the jurisdiction of the City Council. Members of the public will have the opportunity to address the City Council regarding all items on the agenda at the time the Council considers those items. General public comment will be taken for 30 minutes and will resume later in the meeting if there are speakers who do not get an opportunity to speak because of the 30-minute time limit. Additionally, as a measure of equity, the first 15 minutes of public comment will be allotted to speakers in the chamber, and if needed, followed by 15 minutes of public comment from Zoom participants. The Brown Act prohibits the City Council from taking action on all requests related to items that are not on the agenda. The Council may engage in a brief discussion, refer the matter to staff, and/or schedule a request for consideration at a subsequent meeting. Written public comment received prior to the meeting has been distributed to the City Council and placed in the document archive system on the city website. Before I open public comment, I'd like to remind audience members that out of respect for these proceedings and others in the audience, to refrain from behavior such as cheering, jeering, or clapping. I'll now open public comment for any members of the public in the council chamber who wish to address the council on items not listed on the agenda. You're up.
Good evening, Council of Claremont. Some of you may know me, some of you may not. My name is Rich Gill, and I am an advocate for many voters. I have been contacted by your voters in Claremont because of a housing situation on Larkin. Right now, we also have a housing situation in Laverne and San Dimas. You have Jamboree. We have Core that we have to deal with. These housing companies, we're uncomfortable with them. Why? Because they both came in under the same circumstances. They didn't acknowledge what their true intentions were, but they wanted to build anyways. They didn't give us the right information. They didn't give us the facts. Heck, they didn't even tell our city councils. Why? They just wanted the money. And they wanted to build. And that's why we fight. And we continue fighting. I have built and continue to build a group called LA County United. 6,000 voters and growing. Out of Glendora, out of San Dimas, and now out of Claremont. Voters that are unhappy with council members and people that they feel are not listening to them. That they feel that when they speak to them in hopes that they will listen, are not. You are supposed to be their voice. When they ask you and say, we don't want this in our city for the reasons that we said, and yet this building is being there coming anyways, I can't understand that. The City Council of Laverne unanimously opposed our building. The City of San Dimas opposed the building. Did you oppose the building? That's a good question. I speak to the county supervisor. Well, I don't speak to her directly, but I speak to Vicki Paul.
Mr. Gill, you have reached 3 minutes, please.
My point is, you need to talk to your voters because your voters are talking to me. And right now, they are unhappy with what's going on. And they want answers. And you need to give them answers now.
Thank you, sir.
My name is April Ferguson, and I'm here. There's supposed to be some pictures that I submitted regarding the parking structure on First Street. Vomit, urine, trash, graffiti. I deal with that every single day. I work in the village. I take that elevator. I'm required to park over there because it's an all-day parking. I have requested for the past year that something be done with this parking structure. I would urge each one of you to go over there. If you had to get into an elevator every day with vomit that was there for over 3 or 4 days, dead rodents on the stairways, and are the pictures not here? I got in an elevator, I went tonight before I came to this meeting. One elevator doesn't work, the other one the door doesn't close. A family with a child was trying to get in the elevator. It would not close. They had a stroller. They had to collapse the stroller and walk down 3 flights. I want to know why nothing is being done about this condition. So do you have the pictures or not? I've got them on my phone. I'd be happy to share them.
Just a quick reminder that if public comment, you're allowed to address us. We do not address.
Oh, okay.
Go back
So
and address your
I don't know if you've seen the pictures. You can't let me know that.
You're welcome to address us.
Okay, how do I get the pictures to you?
We can make sure, if you send them to the city clerk can.
I was requested to send them to Jeremy Swan, and I did that, and he told me they would be here tonight.
Okay, so, again, I can't go back and forth with you, that's not how unfortunately this process works, but we're happy to listen to you, and we're happy to address some of this at the end of public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Good evening, I'm Lawrence Foster, a resident of Claremont for the past 45 years, a homeowner for 42 of those 45 years. Never attended a council meeting before. I feel compelled to speak to you this evening about the proposal from Jamboree and your willingness to deal with displaced persons. There are 4 issues that we have to look at when we look at displaced persons. Delivery of health besides health services, mental health, drug abuse, and alcohol abuse. Developers cannot make a serious claim that those needs will be met if Jamboree is allowed to build. Developers collect the fee and they leave. Those of us who are residents, whether for 1 month or for 45 years, have to live with the consequences of this decision. Thank you and good evening.
My name is Daron Dula. I'm a resident of Claremont for 31 years. I'm retired, former California licensed psychologist. In some years, I worked with the emotionally, mentally ill adults at inpatient units and outpatient programs. My experience, my work experience, is that there's a high concordance rate between mental illness, drug abuse, violence, and chronic homelessness. All these individuals mean well. As a group, those are the characteristics, my experience. If they were to reside in Larkin, the identified potential victims are the seniors and the children.
Regarding Larkin Park, I'm Paul S. Wheeler. We hold in very high regard the most dearest thing to us is our family, our house, our businesses, and where we worship. When we have Jamboree coming in, they have promised and said what wonderful people they will be, and it's proven in other developments they haven't, and what wonderful things they're going to do. So if they are people of their word, they will have no problem to submitting all the things they say they're going to do to a conditional use permit. We operate our businesses, our restaurants, our daycare, and our places of worship under the city review under a conditional use permit. There is no exit strategy if things turn bad. Now we can talk about Brett, the schizophrenic, alcoholic, drug addicted guy that had 80, 90, 100 calls for service, and what a disaster that gentleman was, who has since passed away, and then we can talk about it. Now can you imagine 40 people like that at Larkin Place? Please put the pressure on our county supervisors, and we as a community can help them. We don't know how to help drug addicted schizophrenics and alcoholics, but the Kiwanis Club and our arch rival, the Rotary Club, we can. So please put some pressure on that to have it for seniors, because we can do some good. But the other is going to be a disaster, and you're not listening. Please listen to the people that vote for you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Buff Brown. I'm speaking as a citizen and a member of Claremont Streets for People, CSP. For full disclosure, I am also a member of the Traffic and Transportation Commission, but I am not speaking on their behalf. I want to give you an update on the Mountain Avenue design. This is the priority project for Claremont Streets for People. The priority of this street must be maximizing safety. CSP sees this as the backbone of a network of future safe streets, an extension of your complete streets policy, if you will. You received a letter from CSP 2 weeks ago describing the Mountain Avenue issues. I know it's 10 pages long, but the letter itself is only 2.5, and the rest are the details. Please read it in its entirety. Lives depend on your acting on this. CSP is growing. We're up to 160 members. This is a community concern. Last week, CSP addressed the Claremont Unified School District Board on this issue and also provided them with a similar 10-page letter. There are concerns with some of the engineering staff decisions. These are noted in the letter, but one of the most concerning was that in a neighborhood meeting regarding Mountain Avenue, the staff did not disclose one of the Class 4 cross-sectional options provided by the consultant KOA This particular option, the CSP's research suggests it to be the safest and the best. It's with on-street parking and it's without a center turn lane. A recent study of 5 streets in LA, formerly with 3 lanes, where the center turn lane was removed to make room for bike infrastructure. It showed a 42% reduction in crashes per million vehicle miles traveled. But ultimately, none of these cross-sectional options have been analyzed specifically for safety by the city or the consultant, which requires thorough research of safety studies. To claim it's within engineering standards or within common practice does not make it the safest option. Now, you may not see it, the City Council may not see the design on your agenda until it is done and you are asked to approve a construction contract. So the letter suggests an intervention and it provides some steps for you to consider. So please consider them. Thank you.
As my husband would say, now for something completely different. Good evening, honorable city council persons. My public comment is a general one, a positive one. It applies to several council topics and it's brief. First of all, I'd like to thank the city council and the city staff for their passion and dedication. I know those phrases get thrown around so often that they seem cliche or trite, but I know I speak for many, many Claremont citizens who deeply appreciate the many hours of reading, contemplating, studying, losing sleep over, and getting aggravated by all of the actions and the ups and downs and ins and outs of city council. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, not every citizen and every council person agree on everything, but I'm here to make it clear that I appreciate the respect that each person is shown by each councilman. You're accustomed to sitting up there in your positions of power, but for those of us at the podium, it's a little daunting and sometimes intimidating. The last time I was here, I mentioned that I was trained as a professional mediator and that I try to see things non-judgmentally from many different perspectives. I know that you do too. We both realize that differing opinions need not be seen as confrontational or oppositional, but can simply be different approaches to addressing shared concerns. Thank you, City Council and City staff, for your open eyes, open ears, open minds, and open hearts.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, everyone present. My name is Daniel Brinkhurst. I'm with your Getty's Group. We're termed developer in the affordable housing world. The Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development has put out a grant to the tune of $88 million. And it's titled Pathways to Removing Obstacles to Housing. So what that money is for is identifying an obstacle, removing it, and then it can be used to create affordable housing and or homeless housing, homeless solutions. They're giving out 20 grants from this money, so there's plenty of money for a lot of the cities within San Gabriel Valley, including Claremont. So they've identified priority geographies. California is one, the Los Angeles County is one, and specifically Eastern San Gabriel Valley is one as well. Thankfully, we fall into all those. It doesn't hurt to remind the federal government why California is a priority. Over the last 2 years, we've lost over 500,000 people. Our population has declined by 500,000 people. And that's unprecedented in our state's history. We even grew through the Great Recession. I mean, we've been strong. And as for the reason, well, USA Today did a study and they released it at the end of June. And what they found is 4 in 10 Americans are considering leaving California. And the top reason, cost of living, which is driven by housing costs. So this being said tonight, to be of help, to be of aid, to bring this money into not just San Gabriel Valley, but the city of Claremont, there will be a follow-up email conveying that information as well as asking for the opportunity to present it to the people that would be interested in this room. You will be seeing that shortly. Thank you for listening to me.
Mayor, we have reached 15 minutes.
Okay, if you're in the council chamber and want to speak, please wait a moment and we'll move to online.
Tesfa Asmara, you may begin public comment.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Tesfa Asmara. I am a senior at Pomona College where I am majoring in math and computer science. I am reaching out to City Council because I would like to apply for a micro-mobility license to distribute electric scooters, push bikes and electric bikes, etc., as well as assess the need for those things amongst Claremont College students. I believe that this was established in February of 2018 with a Chinese company named Oppo, and that program ended in October of 2018. The city of Claremont passed some restrictions on micro-mobility licenses, but I was wondering if I, passed all of those criteria, if I could, provide a service to those two students in the Claremont College area, working with Pomona College internally. If I can obtain a license, then I can, be referred internally to Pomona College on further steps. And I just want to make sure I'm doing everything everything is checked off. Anyways, I see that the procedure is to follow up via email, so I will do so. I also noticed that there was comment being taken on housing structures. I was just kind of taken aback by residents' egos to think for themselves. I just ask that you consider the other perspective of those people that could use those housing structures. But once again, I'm just a college student. I do not live here. Thank you for your time, Council.
Mayor, that was our only speaker on the Zoom, and we do have some time remaining if there's anyone else who wishes to speak.
Okay, so I'll bring it back to the council chamber for any additional speakers for general public comment.
Good evening, City Council, dear all mechanics. City manager looks happy over there. It appears you guys are treating him very well. Wanted to just put a thank you out to Paul Wheeler, longtime architect, loves the city of Claremont. We're all familiar with Paul. Lauren Foster coming up tonight, distinguished professor of Pomona College, sharing his thoughts about Larkin Place. And a big special thanks to Rich Gill for coming out. It's critical that the council understand this is the beginning. This is the beginning. And as probably one of the most informed people on this subject, Linda Mobby, she believes half the council is very well intended, and the other half of the council is not well intended. The last time I was here, in the CEO of Pilgrim Place's business in writing, I presented to you where he put in writing that city officials pressured Pilgrim's Place into this fiasco. I think it would be really appropriate for council to ask the city manager to look into that, to see what city officials pressured the CEO of Pilgrim's Place into this whole endeavor. It has not been transparent. We have strike one, which is the structure. You will find out that Councilmember Calici was correct on his concerns. To be continued on the subject of the structure, strike one, okay? Strike two, John Scott was going to talk about opportunities missed. I'm going to avoid that and let him talk about that. The population. Who's going into this building? If the 5 of you were going into the building, believe me, I wouldn't be here tonight. I'd be thrilled, okay? We have, at the direction, possibly, of our community development director, we have staff letting the public know that we will not have individuals in there with drug addiction problems. That runs completely contrary to what the county is saying.
As the professor said earlier, we will have alcohol addictions, very serious. And I know that all of you are sincere about whoever goes into this facility, if it's built. Hopefully it's not. Drug addictions, mental health issues, the state of California is very concerned. There is no accountability to help these individuals manage their medications. It's build it, take the profit, and run. And our police department will be held accountable for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of calls and just kick the can down the road. So we have a great city manager, we have a great assistant city manager, we have a qualified, competent city attorney.
Mr. McCann.
If we could just please, thank you, if we can please take this matter seriously, because this is the beginning, it's not the end.
Mr. Mayor, we did have one additional raised hand on Zoom just as we called for the end of public comment, if you'd like to consider.
Again, one more. How many more are in the audience tonight? Mr. Scott? And we have two. We have plenty of time for those three, the online.
We ran a little over, but.
Let's go ahead and hold on the online for a moment, and we'll complete the ones in chambers. We came back to chamber.
Evening, members of council. Before I say anything, I do want to congratulate you for voting in Bob Perry. I've known him since the 70s. Not much since then, but that's a great plus for the city. And I think you're gonna see that what I'm saying here is true, at least in that regard. As with regards to Larkin Place, nobody can deny that it's spawned a great deal of discussion. As for myself, I'm not opposed to the structure per se. It's a little big for scale-wise for the parcel, but I'm okay with that. And I'm definitely have no contention with housing homeless individuals there. Rather, it's the specific target population that concerns me. And when it comes to general chronic homeless individuals, predominantly single males with a lot of issues, as opposed to something like seniors, I do think that we are missing some opportunities, as Gerald alluded to. So I'm going to run through a few missed opportunities as briefly as possible. The first missed opportunity I would deem the no community engagement factor. So I've spoken to a few residents over at Pilgrim Place, and at least one council, and one board member, and they told me, and I quote, it would sure be nice to have homeless seniors in there. And they went on to say, if we asked if we could volunteer over there and go over and collaborate with them, lend an ear, maybe play some instruments, just help engage with them, welcome them into the community. And we were told, no, you can't do that because of who's going in there. Missed opportunity. Second missed opportunity is, I think it would have behooved us and been a lot better if we could have helped and assisted the local homeless in our community within maybe a 5-mile radius instead of regional. Third, I think is just more of like a generalized thing. There's nothing anybody can really do with it at this point. Is I think we could have definitely assisted more homeless individuals with those allotted funds. I mean, hats off to you for out getting that much money in place, but I just don't see it being spent prudently. There's how many more individuals maybe could we have helped with that money? I don't know. I spoke with permanent local housing allocation, it's a PLHS. She's going to get me some numbers on that. She said
said, yeah, but she did say, she recorded, yeah, you could have done a lot more with that money. So, of those missed opportunities, I would just say that there's one that still could be avoided, and that is if, that one or more of you council can contact CES and LaLonda to maybe help in the direction of placing seniors in that location. Thank you very much.
Thank you for letting us take a few more minutes of our time here for public comment. I'm appalled that I watched the planning commission deliberate for close to 2 hours on whether a pizza place could stay open until after 11 o'clock near the colleges for fear that people drinking and going to the pizza place would create crime issues or harm to neighbors. That's a discussion of close to 2 hours, and there was never any discussion related to permanent supportive housing, allowing people addicted to drugs and having mental illness have optional, able to deny services next to our seniors, next to our children. No discussion of it, never any acknowledgement that there's potential harm there, not even once from any of you or the Architectural Commission or all of these people. So I'm appalled at that, and I wish there would be more concern about those issues. We've talked to our police department, and they're ready and willing to help, but their hands are tied for circumstantially. I would like to also address the affordable housing aspect. Yes, I agree, affordable housing is needed. There are many, many seniors in our community that are on minimum social security, maybe $1,000 to $1,200 a month, that would be perfect for that location, but that was never discussed, that was never promoted, and I'm really saddened by that because many of these people are potentially homeless themselves. 500,000 people, according to this gentleman, are leaving or have left the state, and I think he said 40% are due to not being able to afford housing. What about the other 60%? A lot of it has to do with higher crime, a lack of addressing crime issues. We have DAs that let people out. We have felonies that are now misdemeanors. And people are afraid. People are concerned. Their voices have been taken away. And it's not just affordable housing anymore. It's crime, it's disappointment with politicians not listening to them. And that's a big reason why people are leaving. And it's really sad because we have a beautiful state, we have a beautiful city. And I hate to see decisions made that are going to jeopardize that. I just really would like you to consider that, possibly putting more pressure on the county for pushing for a different population, as John said, for the homeless seniors instead of chronically homeless. They originally told us that that was what they were going to do. That's what LACTA said when we talked to Supervisor Barber's office.
Miss Mommy, you have reached 3 minutes, please.
And they said they would go with homeless seniors, and then Jamboree said, no, we'll just see what we can do. So that we were let down again by promises that weren't fulfilled because they're not protecting us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mommy. All right.
So Russ Byard had his hand raised, but he since lowered it, so that concludes public comment.
All right, so we'll close public comment and move to, actually there's a number of you, if we can take one slide back. A number of you have put in requests or made requests. If you'd like follow-up to your requests, please email contact@ci.claremont.ca.us and we can address those concerns. In regards to one thing that I was going to touch on, forgive me, I did not write down your last name, but April, we'll make sure staff reaches out to you in regards to your concern. on the parking structure. All right, any other
We're done.
items that I've missed, council? Mayor Pro Tem.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, forgive me, I know that on this person, you're gonna be reaching out to you, but if there's a quick answer that we can address as far as the cleaning of that parking structure of the elevator, can the city manager at least address the frequency at which that is?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, I'm going to ask Jeremy Swan, our Community Services Director, to detail out our current procedures relative to the elevator and the parking structure in general.
Good evening, members of the council, Jeremy Swan, Community Services Director. We are cleaning the elevator currently 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. We're in there at different points throughout the day. We just received bids back for a complete overhaul, I'll say up to 2 elevator cabs. So we're reviewing those and preparing a report to come to you guys in a future council meeting. Additionally, on top of that, we're doing weekly pressure washing in that area, the stairs and the hotspot areas and around the whole parking structure area. Sometimes that turns into 2 times a week, but normally it's traditionally 1.
And just to avoid a conversation with that, any other,
That was all, just thank you.
Madam City Attorney, it looks like there's, is that in regards to this item or something like that?
It's a general question.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if something like cleaning an elevator, if someone downloads a city app, if that's something that would then alert community services to take care of an issue right away. And the city app, you can get it on your phone and just look up City of Claremont and download the app, and it has this whole wheel of things that you can get in touch with and take a picture and send it right away.
Yes, Councilmember Stark, that is an excellent suggestion. We do have a city app that residents can download on their phone and use it to report maintenance issues around the city. It gives you the ability to take photos of the issue, to use GIS mapping to pinpoint the location of the issue, and then to report it to city staff. And once it's reported, it's routed immediately to the department that's responsible for maintenance. So I'd encourage all of our residents to download that app.
And that app is good for potholes as well, so.
Yes, it is.
All right, Councilmember Clyde.
I believe I saw Mr. Swan acknowledging you had pictures. Do you have those? Can you pass those to council or appreciate it? Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our public comment, and we'll move to the consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine. The city council may act on these items in one motion following public comment. Only council members may pull an item to the consent calendar for discussion. Reading of resolutions and ordinances will be waived. Does any member of the city council wish to comment on an item or pull an item or items for discussion? Seeing none, now is the time for those in the audience to comment on consent calendar items 2 through 5. Are there any members of the public in the council chamber who wishes to address consent items 2 through 5? Seeing none, is there any online that want to address 2 through 5?
There is. Thank you. Ross Pringle, you may begin your public comment.
Hi, good evening. Yes, my name's Ross Pringle. I'm with Claremont Streets for People. We want to commend the city on the sustainability of goals achieved in the 2022 sustainability report. Switching to cleaner electricity, improving energy efficiency, building more lower income housing are all wonderful. We also want to commend the City Council for approving the e-bike subsidy program at the July 25th meeting. We definitely look forward to learning more about this program as it becomes available. And we're glad to see that the city is seeing the great promise of e-bikes in shifting our transportation modes and reducing our carbon emissions. However, the missing piece of the sustainability puzzle when it comes to transportation remains our walking and biking infrastructure. We need streets that are safe to cross while walking and sidewalks that aren't tripping hazards. We need streets that protect people while biking and calm car traffic for slower, safer speeds. When people arrive at their destination, there needs to be a safe place to lock their bikes. And we need these changes to happen rapidly, not over decades, with quick build projects that can be designed and installed in months and not years. We understand that there's many things the City Council can't control, including the sizes of vehicles on the roads, even though SUVs are 8 times more deadly for children than passenger cars, and you can't control the laws from Sacramento or Washington. But however, what you do control are the companies that the city uses to design our streets and roads. You can choose companies that help advance the city's sustainability goals. The current company, Advantech, that the city often contracts with, is a highly car-centric firm, and therefore submits designs to the city that are diametrically opposed to Claremont's sustainability goals, because the designs always favor personal vehicles over other forms of transportation. However, there are many firms that can create designs to help meet our sustainability goals, and cities in California are really leading on this. They include cities like Davis, Albany, Lompoc, Seaside, San Luis Obispo, Santa Monica, Berkeley, and Davis. Claremont should too be on this list. Why should this be a major priority? In California, passenger vehicles are the largest greenhouse gas emitter by sector, with 25% of all of California's emissions coming just from passenger vehicles. Furthermore, over 52% of trips in LA County are less than 3 miles, which is a nice, easy bike ride or e-bike ride. That represents 15 billion miles traveled each year for under 5 miles of travel. If we can shift 25, 50, or even 75% of those trips to other modes of transit, we'd make a major step towards our sustainability goals. We certainly look forward to working with you to make a more sustainable city a reality. Thank you so much.
That concludes public comment on Zoom.
All right, I'll close public comment on our consent calendar and bring it back to council items 2 through 5 for any discussion or motion.
I have to remove the consent calendar.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Colaca?
Yes.
Councilmember Stark?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Medina?
Yes.
Councilmember Liano?
Yes.
Mayor Reese?
Yes, all right, the motion passes unanimously. We'll move to public hearings. And we have 2 public hearings this evening. As I stated before, that I do have a conflict on what was formerly item number 6 on the agenda. And that conflict is in relationship to real property within the legal boundaries of the subject property. And so when we get to that item, we will take a short recess and the Mayor Pro Tem will take over. So that brings us to item number 7, the original item number 7, the appeal of the Architectural Commission's decision to uphold Planning Division staff's approval of architectural staff review number 23-AS06 for the demolition, reconstruction, and expansion of an existing attached 2-car garage at the single-family residence property located at 692 West 12th Street, and the appellant Melissa Paul. Before I have the staff report, I'd like to provide an overview of the appeal process. First, we will have a report from staff, questions from City Council for staff, a report from the Architectural Commission Chair, if needed, questions from the City Council to the Chair. Then I'll open the public hearing. We'll hear the appellant's comments. The appellant will be granted 12 minutes to present, and the appellant can reserve a portion of that time for rebuttal if desired. Then questions from the City Council for the appellant. Applicant comments, that is limited to 10 minutes, and again, any portion of that is able to be reserved for rebuttal. Questions from the City Council for the applicant, then public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Then the City Council may ask questions of a speaker for clarification. Then we have rebuttal comments from the appellant and or applicant if time is reserved. The public hearing will be closed. City Council will have any potential questions for staff, deliberation, and council action. So it is a process. But with that, we will, I'll ask for the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor Reese, council members. My name is Nick Claudia, Senior Planner with the Claremont Planning Division. So the first public hearing item before you tonight is an appeal of the Architectural Commission's decision to uphold staff's approval of architectural staff review file number 23-AS06 for the project at 692 West 12th Street. The project applicant is Dan D'Andrea of Dan D'Andrea Construction, and the appellant is Ms. Melissa Paul. So I'll start by providing a brief summary of the project. The proposal is to demolish an existing attached two-car garage. That two-car garage was originally built as a carport, has a flat roof, and it was enclosed in 1980. In its place, the applicant is proposed constructing a newer, slightly larger two-car garage that includes a storage mezzanine at its rear east side, facing the sort of rear yard of the property. As opposed to a flat roof, this new proposed garage would have a gabled roof line that's consistent with the rest of the home. The height of the garage would increase to accommodate that gabled roof line and the storage mezzanine, but the garage reconstruction more or less, or essentially maintains the footprint of the existing garage, the setbacks from the southern property line, which is shared with the appellant, Miss Paul, and Cambridge Avenue, North-South Street. So here is aerial view of the property. So it's located at the southeast corner of the intersection of 12th Street and Cambridge Avenue. It's in the RS 8000 zoning district in the old Claremont neighborhood. It's about 160 feet south of Foothill Boulevard here to the north, and Cambridge Avenue does not connect through Foothill here. Zooming in closer to the site, so I will acknowledge that this is an older aerial view. Currently, the property has fewer trees both in the rear yard and in the public right-of-way, and I'll explain why in my subsequent slides of this presentation. So this is what the property currently looks like. Again, you can see the enclosed garage here on the south side of the property, flat roof. Again, this is an enclosed carport. The garage used to be located on the other side of the property, and the driveway took access off 12th. And then here you can see a view of the house from 12th Street looking south. And then here you can see the southern property line that the subject property shares with that of the appellant, Ms. Melissa Paul, on Cambridge Avenue. Again, a little bit of background on the property. It was built in 1946, part of the old Claremont neighborhood, which is the first major subdivision and development in the city. It was sold to the previous owner in 2019. The previous owner was a flipper who purchased the property with the intention of remodeling and selling it. In order to accomplish that remodeling, the city issued building permits for an interior remodel, re-roof, and replacement of the home's windows and doors. Another permit was issued in 2021 for a new outdoor barbecue structure and a new wood fence and gates in the rear yard. The renovation undertaken by the owner was considerably more disruptive than similar projects in the city. I don't think any of us would want to live next to the kind of work that the prior owner was doing. Again, kind of as far as I can tell, the intention was to go in there, do what they could to change the look of the property and then sell it at a profit. I don't know if there's anything fundamentally wrong with that, but the way that this prior owner undertook all that work was disruptive to the appellant and to the neighborhood. Required city intervention and enforcement action to gain compliance with code requirements pertaining to hours of construction, construction impacts, specifically noise, the duration of those noise impacts. And then regrettably, the prior owner removed a number of mature trees on the property, including city-owned street trees in the public right-of-way. And the prior owner paid a penalty fee to the city to provide for the eventual replanting of the removed street trees, and community services is working with the current owner to do that. The property was sold to the current owner in 2022, who now resides at the property. Again, bears no relation to the flipper who bought it in 2019 beyond engaging in a real estate transaction to purchase the home. So I'll show the site plan and sort of describe the city process in the next few slides. So again, north will be on the left side of the slide here. So you can see the garage over here at the corner and the building footprint. Again, the proposal is to demolish the enclosed carport and build a new garage in its place with more or less the same building footprint, but with increased height and the ability to provide for a storage mezzanine on the rear side that faces the interior of the yard. So there you can see the elevation, the west elevation looking from Cambridge Avenue. Overall, from staff's perspective, the proposed addition was consistent with the design of the rest of the home. Again, the home received an updated, more modern look, and the roof plane would be consistent with what's found elsewhere on the home. Again, you can see the height of it would increase to 16 feet in bringing up that slope of the gabled roof, continuing the same angle as this one. And the next slide will show that a little bit better. This is on the rear, so this would be in the rear yard looking east on the back side of the garage. So you can see that there's some increased height here to provide for a storage mezzanine that again isn't habitable space. It doesn't go above 6 foot 6 inches or what you would consider a room or a livable room. So it really is a storage mezzanine with a pull down ladder, and then it provides a through door into the rear yard with a small covering over that through door. So there you can see looking south. So this is the south elevation. This would be looking north. The garage doors are on this side of the structure. And I'll show a section drawing that shows how the garage would accommodate a vehicle, provide some storage room for the current owners. This is looking at it from the north, so you can see the dwelling here in the foreground, how the design of the garage matches the roof pitch and then takes on a gentler roof pitch towards the rear, which should be mostly concealed from the street by this gable to provide some storage area on the interior of the garage with this drop-down ladder. So in terms of some the timeline on the project, city staff received the application on February 14th. Because we were aware of issues with the prior owner of the property, we decided to take this in for a staff level design review, which gives us the opportunity to notify neighbors in the surrounding area. So again, a pretty small radius, just the surrounding property owners that might be affected or interested in the proposal. We sent out a neighbor notice to property owners in the near vicinity of the site on March 21st. Which starts a 10-day notice period. The purpose of that 10-day notice period is to allow folks to come in, look at the plans, articulate any concerns before the staff just approves it. This is opposed to just going in for a building permit, which wouldn't require a notification of neighbors. It's strictly a ministerial process, which is typically what we follow for room additions to the rear of the home. That wouldn't change the look of a home from the public right of way. On May 3rd, city staff approved the site plan, floor plan, and elevations for the new garage. The approval notice was mailed to surrounding property owners who received the notice of application. Prior to the end of the 10-day appeal period, the planning department staff's decision was appealed. On July 26th, the Architectural Commission held a public hearing where they heard testimony from the appellant, heard from the applicant as well, they heard from the property owner, and they ultimately voted unanimously to uphold staff's approval. They generally agreed with staff that the architectural and design review criteria set forth in the code could be met by the project as proposed, and that while they commiserated and empathized with the appellant for what they had to go through in the disruptive construction process prior to that point, that it wouldn't be right, it wouldn't be fair to deny the current owner's project based on the actions of the flipper who owned the house for a few years from 2019 to 2022. So following the public hearing on July 26th, the Architectural Commission decision was appealed by the same appellant, Melissa Paul, on October 7th prior to the end of the appeal period of the Architectural Commission's decision. So I'll provide a summary. The applicant's going to have the appellant, is going to have an opportunity to speak, but I want to summarize the appeal arguments. Firstly, that the exposure to prolonged and excessive noise levels resulting from improper construction activities was deleterious to her health and to the whole neighborhood as a whole. The removal of street trees and privately owned trees resulted in the destruction of natural vegetation and wildlife habitat, and that the garage in itself was incompatible with the surrounding neighborhood and would result in increased noise due to the actions taken by the prior owner, and that's all as a result of the project. In response to the first argument from the appellant, again, staff wants to acknowledge the detrimental impacts associated with the prior owner's construction. I wasn't here with the city at the time, but I feel like the code enforcement staff, community development staff, building staff, and even police staff made a good faith effort to bring the former owner into compliance and mitigate those impacts. Again, we weren't able to mitigate those impacts completely, which kind of speaks to the nature of the work done by the prior owner. Municipal code regulations pertaining to the permitted hours of construction, days of construction, maximum noise levels will be strictly enforced. At the Architectural Commission meeting, there was some discussion about the times at which this project would be the most impactful in terms of noise and vibration, and the applicant's willing to give a heads up to the appellant and sort of minimize those noise levels and undertake the project in a sort of professional manner that's consistent with the code. And again, the commission and staff feel that the prior owner's violations do not represent grounds to deny the proposed garage rebuild. Just want to put up the exterior noise standards. Again, from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., the exterior noise level based on code shouldn't exceed 60 decibels, which is a pretty low noise level. And then there are exemptions which include construction activities, but again, they're limited to 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Weekdays and Saturdays, excluding national holidays, and that noise levels on residential properties can't exceed that 65 decibel noise level for a continual period of more than 15 minutes per hour, or 70 for a cumulative period of more than 10 minutes per any hour, which would be enforced and are enforced on any construction project here in the city. In response to the second argument, it certainly is a shame that the street trees and the private trees removed. It's not really consistent with the city's values. Unfortunately, the city does not have a permit requirement for the removal of mature trees unless there's a project up before the city, in which case we work to try to avoid those removals. In this case, the garage rebuild proposes a modest expansion of 71 square feet. And based on that minimal increase to square footage, it's fair to assume that any additional impacts to the local ecosystem will be minimal or non-existent. And finally, with respect to incompatibility with the surrounding neighborhood, the proposed project does meet all code requirements, all the zoning and development standards of the RS 8000 zoning district. It does increase the height of the building, but not to an extent that would be out of keeping with the neighborhood. And again, it meets height requirements, setback requirements, lot coverage, floor area. And in general, the design and the massing of the garage is consistent with the rest of the home, and staff and the commission found that it wasn't incompatible with surrounding development. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. I know that Helen and the applicant both have an opportunity to speak. Staff recommendation is that the City Council adopt a resolution of the City of Claremont denying the appeal of and affirming the Architectural Commission's decision to uphold Planning Division's approval of architectural and staff review file number 23 ASO 6 for the reconstruction and small expansion of the existing attached two-car garage, and to find that the proposal is categorically exempt from provisions of CEQA pursuant to section 15301 existing facilities, in that the project constitutes a minor addition to an existing private structure with no expansion of habitable space or use of the property. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions of the council before turning it over to the appellant.
Thank you, sir. And we'll see if there's some initial questions from council for staff. No initial questions. Then we'll move to the next step in the process. Does council have any questions that staff can answer in regards to the architectural commission process? Okay. And we'll now open the public hearing and invite the appellant, Ms. Paul, to provide a presentation. I'll remind you, Ms. Paul, you have 12 minutes to speak, and you may reserve a portion of that time for rebuttal at your discretion. You're welcome to proceed.
My name is Melissa Paul. I live at 1230 North Cambridge Avenue. I'm appealing the construction project next door at 692 West 12th Street. A garage that is taller than the house is not typical for this neighborhood, and that standard has served this neighborhood well for decades. The flat roof has been on that garage/carport since 1965. Raising the height, I believe, will direct even more noise straight into my bedroom. The peeping Tom windows on the second floor are also a problem, with only my young tree blocking views into one of my bedrooms. I was not surprised when I saw how bad the design was, considering this neighbor refused to give me privacy even while I was grieving. This neighbor claims she needs more storage. There are more ways to get storage without invading my privacy that wouldn't increase the noise being directed to my property. The Architectural Commission discussed but did not impose restrictions in writing on the rebuild as to putting up sound barriers to block jackhammering noise and dust and removal of the windows on the second story facing my bedroom. Yet the same commission even sent back the proposed design of a project in another part of Claremont in their February 2023 meeting where there were fewer concerns than this project. This is what I want the City Council to do, order a redesign. This project next door again involves jackhammering in the exact same spot at the 692 property, as was done twice in 2021, that caused 2 neighbors to go to the ER. I was one of the 2. It was life-threatening. The second jackhammering in the driveway was done because the city ordered the construction work redone. It's 2023 and the city wants to approve extensive jackhammering again without protecting neighbors, including me. This is unsafe and violates multiple provisions of Claremont Municipal Code 16300, including compatibility, privacy, sustainability, Claremont Sustainable City Plan, health and safety. Also, the city, in sending out notices of this project, did not warn anyone in the neighborhood that extensive jackhammering would be done, in spite of how disastrous when this was done twice in 2021. And also, the city did not inform the public of the safety concerns that 2 residents went to the hospital because of that prior jackhammering. The privacy criteria number 6 says, quote, "The proposed development is designed to meet the privacy of adjacent residential properties to the greatest extent possible. How is not changing the height even 1 inch respecting privacy to the greatest extent possible? How is not removing the second-story windows with views into my bedrooms everything possible? How is jackhammering for weeks with 0 sound or dust containment everything possible? How is making not a single change due to these concerns respecting privacy to the greatest extent possible? Nothing is hardly the greatest extent possible. Birds are in my yard year-round. I have plants adjacent to the property line in my front yard that feed hummingbirds year-round. How is pelting that area with jackhammering debris projectiles acceptable? I use my garden every day, sometimes all day. How is the city going to protect my safety just in using my property normally per number 12 health and safety? If jackhammering without any sound, dust, or projectile prevention is implemented, is there no limit in the number of days that jackhammering could occur, even Monday through Saturday, all day long? And if it is done incorrectly again, how many more times could it be redone in the very same spot? If no mitigations are put in writing, what good are they? And if there are extreme sound violations, what happens this time? Nothing? Stop for 20 minutes or a day and then continue the same way. It is a huge problem. One of the reasons I gave you such an extensive history of the abuse that happened during the previous owner of the flipper, so that history would not repeat itself. Yet here it is happening again. In 2021, there was a furor over the property. One of the most vocal persons at the time was Realtor Jeff Hamill. He thought the penalties were so low that it would not discourage the problems, as owners, sellers of properties this expensive can easily afford such fines and do as they please. And here we are again. I can tell you this type of invasive, extreme construction is not the norm in this neighborhood. It certainly does not meet community standards. So many construction projects over the decades have been just fine, done well with no problems for me or my family. So why are cases of extreme construction treated the same way as your normal project with sawing and hammering nails? So many builders and property owners do things nicely and meet all your Muni Code section 16.300. Yet with this project, with so many problems, such very peculiar and lax interpretation of these criteria are used. I can tell you that my neighborhood considers that the city threw us all away in 2021. The city had no tools to deal with the problems and still doesn't. There are many seniors in my neighborhood. I've been told on this project there's nothing we can do. The city doesn't care about us. The city will never listen. But I have to try because this is so wrong. I'm doing this at great personal sacrifice in terms of stress and money. I'm a senior living on a very modest fixed income. A large portion of that is Social Security. Do you know the average Social Security check for retirements now is $1,800 a month? I get less than that for Social Security. Yet the city charged me $1,942.20 to file my appeals just to get my voice heard. That is more than a month of my Social Security and would buy me a lot of groceries. Is it the city's intention to exclude the voices of seniors on construction projects? Multi-millionaires can easily afford this. Those on modest fixed incomes find it a hardship. The First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution guarantees the right of the people to petition the government for redress of grievances. That is what I am doing. Nowhere in the First Amendment does it mention excessive fees can be charged for exercising this right.
My first meeting of the 692 West 12th neighbor was on July 8, 2022. She came to my door right before I took my beloved dog Easy to the bed to be put to sleep. I was expecting my niece to drive us. I was crying my eyes out when this neighbor came to the door, and I told her I couldn't talk to her as I was taking my dog to put her to sleep. This neighbor came to my front door in a pandemic, to the house of a senior unmasked. Not many days later, she was back and was incessantly ringing my Ring doorbell. I did not answer as I was grieving, and I couldn't believe she would invade my privacy while grieving. Not to be denied, she then went to another neighbor's house, a senior much older than I, and tried to get my email address. This neighbor refused to give it to her, told her I was a private person. She then persuaded my senior neighbor to forward an email message from her to me, and you know what was so vital that this new neighbor was this pushy? It was a litany of complaints, particularly she wanted the tree removed on my property mentioned in my appeal. She wanted to send someone in to do this because she claimed this tree had caused a crack in her wall, but she wasn't asking for money. I understood this to mean as long as I did what she wanted. This was in bird nesting season, July 2022, in my yard, which is a posted certified wildlife habitat for the National Wildlife Federation, one of only 91 in Claremont. I knew it would be unlawful to harass nesting birds per state and federal law. The tree is approximately 15 years old, yet that wall has had a crack in that location since the 1960s. So besides violating my privacy, she lost all credibility, plus those laws were to be ignored. I declined to have any contact with this neighbor. I informed my senior neighbor the answer was no, and do you know what the 692 neighbor said to her? I'll do what I want. My neighbor friend said this other neighbor's attitude was really bad. I have not added the email exchange to keep my senior friend's email private. That comment was quite prophetic considering the new neighbor's other actions. The 692 neighbor proceeded in July 22 to chop down one of the few remaining trees on her property, right next to the property line, and she also tried to get the city of Claremont to chop down the one remaining city tree on her property on Cambridge Avenue, also next to the south of her driveway. The city refused. My tree is one of the few sound buffers between the properties and would give me some privacy in one of my bedrooms from the second-story windows of the proposed garage demo rebuild. Last Thursday, I spent all day in my front yard gardening. It was lovely. Lots of birds in my yard, Anna's hummingbird forcing the salvias, and even a rare Gill warbler. Yet across the street was a construction project in full swing. A normal construction project, caused me zero concern, didn't interfere with my enjoyment of my property at all. Didn't bother birds either. But the proposed project does all of those things and to an extreme. Wild bird laws totally ignored, both federal and state. The California Attorney General has an advisory from 2018 on how California bird laws are to be interpreted. I don't believe Claremont City ordinance have been updated since then. The city should not allow these laws to be flouted, especially since the city's own contractor, West Coast Arborist, respects these very same laws and even made a presentation to the tree committee last week about protecting birds and how serious these laws are. Yes, there are large fines and even jail time for violations. I asked the city council to deny this plan as proposed and send it back for redesign. Implement limits for jackhammering, especially as the days and hours allowed, and that sound and dust barriers must be used and put in writing. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Small, City Clerk, how much time is this?
She has 1 minute and 23 seconds remaining.
Ms. Small, would you like to reserve 1 minute and 23 seconds? Okay, excellent. All right, we'll move to any questions. You may have to come up if any council has any questions for Ms. Paul. All right, you're good where you're at for now. And so I'm going to move to the next item, which is the project applicant, Mr. DeAndrea. Sir, I may have said that name wrong, forgive me.
DeAndrea.
Oh, DeAndrea, okay. You have 10 minutes to speak, and you also may reserve a time as well for rebuttal.
My name is Dan Vander. I'll be doing the project at 692 12th Street for the new homeowner. I know unfortunately the prior owner and contractor caused a lot of problems with the neighbors and the city. But as you know, the new owners, myself, are not associated with them.
Actually, sorry, can you pull that mic up so that we can, those that are listening to Zoom can hear you?
The garage rebuild project, which has been approved by planning division, is going to make a tremendous improvement over the existing garage, which does not match the architecture of the existing residence. The new design will match all the details of the residence as well as be appropriate for the neighborhood. Our plan is to complete the project in a timely fashion, which should be right about 4 months, while complying with all the current building and city codes. Do you have any other questions?
Okay, so, Madam Clerk, how much time is left?
9 minutes and 10 seconds.
You have 9 minutes and 10 seconds. Would you like to reserve that? Okay. We have any questions from Mr. DeAndrea? Seeing none, thank you, sir. You may take your seat for now.
Thank you.
All right, so now I will invite public comment. Members, just please remember that each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. If there are any members in the public in the council chamber that wish to speak, please come forward.
Hello. My name is Alexia Flores, and I'm the new owner of 692 West 12th Street as of April 2022. I previously resided in the cities of Chino Hills and Dana Point, where the pride of ownership and continued investment in beautification is commonplace. I believe the city of Claremont possesses these same attributes, which have attracted me since 2006 when I began spending time in the city of Claremont while my mother attended graduate school at Claremont colleges. While purchasing the home, I noticed the consistent construction in the surrounding neighborhood, which continues to date. This did not deter me from purchasing the home. However, the seller shared the construction challenges he created in the community and shared that he paid a large fine for the damages he caused. Therefore, after escrow closed so that I did not repeat the seller's mistakes, I made an appointment with the City of Claremont enforcement officer to walk my entire property with me to ensure I was and am aware of what is and is not appropriate in relation to property lines, trees, plants, etc. The appellant is aware that I am not tied to the seller in any fashion, yet the misdirected harboring of ill will continues to be placed on me and my new home. It has been well over a year since the seller moved on from the property, and I would like to move on as well, as I do not feel it is right or just to be treated differently for someone else's actions. After today, I would like to move forward like many of my neighbors have and continue to do so by investing in and beautifying their homes. I trust you each will agree with the city's architectural commission's decision to uphold the city's planning division's approval, which was 5 months ago in May 2023. Thank you, I appreciate your time and attention. Lastly, here's just some pictures.
Go ahead and present it to the city clerk, please.
Just at the window that we can't see it through at all.
Okay, any other public comment from inside the council chamber? Seeing none, any public comment via Zoom?
No one wishing to speak.
Okay, I will close public comment. We'll bring the item back. And Ms. Paul, you do have a balance of time. Would you like to use any of that?
Yes.
Please come forward.
I heard repeatedly from staff and from the applicant that I'm holding her responsible for the actions of the prior owner. While that was terrible, my objections are to the extreme amount of noise right close to the property line and my bedrooms that would prevent me from using my yard in a normal way or being in the bedroom with excessive jackhammering. And what I'm asking the city council to do is put in some reasonable restrictions, something that prevents all that my plants were blasted with rockets. They are recovering now. Birds were scattered out of the yard that they're only now returning, and that's what's wrong. I'm not asking for no construction at all. I'm just asking to have this time around, not to repeat what happened before, and put in some reasonable restrictions on jackhammering. I don't care about other construction, normal doesn't bother me. But if you're going to do 6 days a week of jackhammering with not a single barrier between the and that is very close to the property line. It's not like it's across the property. And that's what I would like to do, because the primary purpose of government is to protect people. And I'm asking you this time around to protect me. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Paul, thank you. Your time has expired. I'll allow the applicant, do you have a balance of time? Do you wish to use it?
Nothing.
All right, so he has forfeited the balance of his time, and we will close the public hearing, turn the discussion to City Council, and does City Council have any questions? Councilmember Leon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Perry or anyone from staff, I just have a procedural question coming from some of the comments that I heard from the appellants. Do we have a fee waiver procedure if people are suffering economic hardship to pay the cost of the fuel?
I believe we do, yes.
Okay, and was that applicable in this case or offered to the appellant?
I don't know.
Okay, but just to be clear that if we present to an individual who is filing an administrative appeal and we present them the cost for filing, we also present the opportunity to apply for waiver for that.
Not to my knowledge, no.
If we have a waiver procedure and if an individual, this has nothing to do with the merits of the appeal, I'm just bringing up the procedural aspect here. If we have an individual who qualifies for a waiver but paid because either they were not aware that there was a waiver or that was just somehow miscommunicated, I think that we should look into, just as a matter of good policy, examining whether they're retroactively qualified for that waiver. Waivers are in place for good policy reason, that you should have equal access to due process independent of your ability to pay. And if the appellant was not aware at the time that she could have a fee waiver and perhaps qualified for one, I would hope that at a minimum our staff would have the ability to follow up on that, examine the qualification, and if it's applicable, apply it retroactively.
We can do that.
That's, thank you.
Yeah, I want to second, it's funny that Councilmember Leon brought that up because that was, I was gonna wait till the end to bring up that point so as to not to convolute the deliberation on the issue. But I'm grateful that you brought up the point, and I would concur, retroactively, regardless of the outcome of this issue, we address that concern. Thank you.
It does sound like there's general consensus, but Mr. Perry, in regards to the process, and forgive me to forgive this question in regards to the appellant and the applicant, but in regards to Councilmember Leon's question, is that a procedural process that you can change internally, or do you need action from us on making sure moving forward people are aware?
We'd have to take a look at the code to see what authority we have at the staff level to grant a fee waiver. If that authority doesn't exist, we would have to go back to council, but if it does, we can process it internally. Retroactively.
So if necessary, once you look at that, can you bring it back to council, if necessary?
Yes.
Councilmember Claremont.
That said, you did acknowledge we do have a program, so there wouldn't be any reason that staff could not communicate that to residents, that there's no reason to withhold that information. We should be informing people of what is available to them that is in policy, correct?
Right.
Okay, so I don't think that requires an action by this council, but I would encourage staff for any of these things, even aside from this issue, if we have, assistance programs, they should, we should be making people aware at the front of the process, not having this type of a situation develop.
We can do that.
Thank you.
All right, so it sounds like process. I'll bring it back again.
I'm sorry, on that, not to belabor the point, but I think it would be an easier suggestion if we just could add something on the application itself, somewhere where the fee is noted. So that way, if for some reason we somebody may forget to pass that along, but at least it's in writing and the applicants can see going forward. So if there's a way to add that to the paper.
Okay, so let's bring it back to the subject. This is related to her fees that she complained about. So it is related to this subject, but let's see if we can move to the next portion of this subject, and specifically on the appeal. Any discussion or questions on the appeal? Councilmember Sutton.
Yeah, I'm wondering, how many days of jackhammering are, does this project seem to need to have in demolishing an old garage?
So this discussion did come up at the architectural commission meeting and I took it conveyed in the staff report. So staff anticipated the loudest activities will include demolition of the existing garage, laying down a new pad for the new garage, and the framing of the structure. So those types of noise that result from those activities include jackhammering, nailing guns, and concrete machines, whirring and as the concrete is laid down. Again, the applicant spoke to this point at the architectural commission meeting and responded at that time the noisiest portions of the construction would take place over several contiguous days. There was some discussion and offer to coordinate with the appellant during those days when those days would occur. There also was some discussion about the use of sort of noise deadening materials during the construction process. In their conversations, the architectural commission stopped short of requiring that or adding conditions of approval, but there certainly was a discussion along those lines, both in terms of duration, when that would occur, and efforts to mitigate those noise impacts through the use of sound deadening materials during the construction.
Thank you.
Councilmember Leon.
So is it correct to, I don't want to assume, so I want to make sure that I get this right. Is it in fact the case then though that our municipal code, the restrictions that we have on construction, constraints on it, like when it can occur, it basically just has when you can start and when you can stop. When you can't start, when you must stop. But for intents and purposes of regardless of the type of construction, we don't make limitations on that in the code, is that correct?
So this section B, it's very small on your screen, but noise levels as measured from residential properties do not exceed 65 decibels for a cumulative period of more than 15 minutes in any 1 hour, exceed 70 decibels for a cumulative period of more than 10 minutes in any 1 hour, or 79 decibels for a cumulative period of more than 5 minutes in any 1 hour, or 80 decibels at any time. So there are provisions of the code that say if you're doing jackhammering that exceeds those noise levels, and it almost certainly probably will, especially when it is close proximity to those property lines, you can't do those for more than 15, 10, or 5 minutes in any given hour. I'm not a manager of a construction project, so the applicant can speak to how they intend to comply with those requirements.
I guess my only follow-up to that would be, what is our administrative procedure or policy to ensure that? If we have a sensitive site where there have been repeated violators in the past, and I think I'm asking these questions not because they relate to the project application necessarily, I just think that they relate specifically to the facts here. You have a site where there are limitations that in the past were violated, and on top of the limitation violations, because of the setup that's no one else's fault, the appellant is actually more sensitive to those impacts than other neighbors or nearby folks because of where things are located, and that's someone's fault. So I suppose, I guess my only just practical question is, what's our administrative way of ensuring that going forward, that the 15-minute rule is followed?
Brad.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Brad Johnson, Community Development Director. We operate on a complaint basis for all of our code violations. So this neighbor, if they call and believe those decibels are exceeded, we'll go out there and take a reading. Again, I think the noisiest part of removing the existing slab, it doesn't have to be entirely done with the jackhammer. They can do small portions on a jackhammer. They can use a small, bobcat type tractor to remove concrete as well. So I think I hope the contractor will be sensitive to that. And if the neighbor calls, we'll go out and do decibel readings.
And the only thing that I would just add to these few questions is simply that we had in the past construction crews that at this location specifically, they just were not very considerate. And then now there's an added sensitivity to the things that this code specifically is trying to prevent. And I don't necessarily know that an adjudication on the appeal of the design addresses that. I think the thing that we're trying to make sure is that our code's not abused again. And I don't know that denying this appeal achieves that objective. And so what I would just submit to my colleagues and to the staff are that we all have a recognition of the fact that this one particular location had a very difficult set of facts for the appellate. And that we should be sensitive to ensuring that going forward, to the best of our capacity, our basic codes are honored, and that we have some additional way to ensure that that there isn't extreme noise and impact, because we have code to prevent that, but they were just blatantly violated in the past. And so that's all I have, except that I definitely sympathize with the issues raised by the appellant, and I want to make sure that administratively we can address them as best we can. I'm not sure that the means to do that is to reject the construction. I think rather it's to handle it administratively on the compliance side. That's all. Thank you, Seth.
Mayor Protem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not, Mr. Lally, I'm not sure if you'd be able to answer this, or if it would actually be the contractor, but when you're using a jackhammer, I understand there's certain different pounds or pressure within the jackhammer. Does any of the jackhammers that one can utilize actually give you the decibels and noise that they would create, so that the contractor could actually utilize a smaller jackhammer if needed?
I don't have the expertise to answer that question. So perhaps applicant, a contractor would.
So, Mr. DeAndrea, would you be willing to answer that question?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead and come forward.
So as far as I know, there's no decibel ratings on each jackhammer. The problem with if we use something smaller, we're gonna be that much longer. If we use something bigger, we'll be out that much quicker. And that's pretty simple. The jackhammer of the concrete, to demo that whole slab, will take 1 to 2 days, because we will do it with a bobcat. And as far as the structure, that's probably 3 days to remove the structure prior to the foundation.
Thank you, I appreciate the information.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Oh, no. All right, Councilmember Stark.
I want to appreciate what my colleague, Councilmember Leano, said, and I tend to be in agreement with that. That despite the fact that the neighbors were subject to undue noise and a construction process that didn't respect them, it has created a more increased sensitivity to even the idea of it. And also it's created a lack of trust in a process that the appellant has conceded that it hasn't always been this way with other projects. And so even though I recognize that there has been a difficult relationship because of trying to get something done and this process, I am just wanting to say that I hope that because Mr. DeAndrea is such a professional, that whatever courtesy that can be given is given, despite the fact that there does seem to be some lingering negativity. This could be the way to ameliorate that, is to just sort of, as best you can, go above and beyond with notification of when the jackhammering is going to happen. And I think for some of this stuff, we just have to rely on our humanity. And I do want to recognize, as Mr. Halati did, that the experience that you went through previously, but I don't think that is, that logically, we can't apply the negative experience to the next experience that's coming. So, thank you, those are my only comments.
Any other comments or questions from Councilmember Fleckley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whenever we've had these appeals, I go back to my beginnings on this council where we were always counseled by then legal counsel, that when we sit in these situations where we are reviewing a decision already made by a previous body, we're supposed to look at it from the standpoint of whether that body erred in their decision, if they didn't apply the law correctly. We generally don't consider new information, there are other points that my colleagues have correctly made that are concerning and a little bit disheartening to hear about, but don't necessarily relate to the appeal itself. Along those lines, and in terms of design of structures, there are certain sets of parameters that we follow, but even there, as things are drawn out, there's always a difference of opinion. People have their different tastes and different styles, and so people are going to have their difference of opinion whether they think something looks right or doesn't. But at the end of the day, we do have parameters, and I do believe that the commission followed those parameters, as did staff in reviewing this project. And along those lines, I don't find that any error was made in the decision. So with regards to the appeal, I'm going to find in favor of holding rather the commission decision. That being said, I couldn't have said better what has already been said by my colleagues, Councilmember Leano and Councilmember Stark. It's unfortunate because it's difficult. When you have neighborhoods, you have neighbors with different styles, different ways of doing things, and sometimes different neighbors don't get along, and that makes it very hard on the city side of things, because sometimes neighbors come to us and they want us to resolve a neighborhood dispute. And all I can do is repeat in many ways what Councilmember Leano and Councilmember Stark are saying, is that we all need to do our part to be kind to each other and do our best to get along and be respectful of each other. And I would concur with what has been said to the contractor and the neighbor. Please go over and above, not because the law is there, go above the law and do your part to make this as a reasonable process for the neighbor. I understand you're doing your best to make it quick also, so that that's the challenge with the type of equipment that you're using. But I hope everybody will be consider each other. And that being said, the other challenge with our laws, we have rules on the books, but enforcement can be very difficult because of the nature. You can't have somebody there 24 hours a day watching the project every step of the way and holding a timer and checking these things. But we know what's occurred there now, as Councilmember Leano and Councilmember Stark alluded to. There are there's a level of distrust and lack of faith now in the process because of what's occurred in the past. So I hope that we will be a little bit more proactive to the best of our ability on what's going on here. If building staff are driving by, just stop and check on things. Try to be a little bit ahead of it also on our end. And let's try to make sure that this project goes more smoothly and respectfully, on all sides, and do our part to try to move this along. And hopefully it'll be over sooner rather than later, and hopefully the neighborhood will heal and people will get along, and it's sad the way this whole thing developed in the beginning. I mean, I was frustrated about the trees that were removed myself. That's really disheartening and frustrating to me, but I hope we can, I think we've collected money to have those replaced, and hopefully we're working with the residents to do that, and we can restore some peace to this neighborhood. So thank you for that.
Councilmember Stark.
Thank you. I just briefly want to acknowledge the fact that the previous owner, by not following our codes, now has created this kind of undue burden for our new neighbors and the new, Mr. DeAndrea, who we have no reason to think that any violations will be made. So I think that there is you know, of course, we inherit the past, it's unfortunate, but I do hope that this will be an opportunity for us to sort of think philosophically, briefly about letting go of what has happened before and hoping for things to get better. So thank you for that opportunity.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not to be out of the point, but I do as well. I agree with my colleagues here, and I do look at an appeal with regards to process, as process is very important in our community. And did we violate, did we go through the right steps to make sure that we ensure that every voice was heard correctly, whether it be process in paperwork or in payment, and can we rectify the wrongs that have been committed there? But whether or not there's a wrong or not, the process ultimately lies at the end of the road. But what I really want to hope that we pull from this appeal is, it's interesting, we look at each other as the appellate and the applicant and the contractor, but we're looking at individuals, Mr. Gander, Ms. Flores, and Ms. Paul. These are humans who are going to share lives with each other simply by proximity. So I hope that throughout the construction process that we keep that in mind in hopes that we look at each other as neighbors, not as applicants or appellates going forward. So, and I genuinely listen to the people that have come up. It sounds as if there is opportunity to move forward and move in the right direction. I do hope that that's the direction that we will take.
Any other comments from council? All right, I do just a couple things to say. My colleagues have kind of taken care of saying the vast majority of everything, but I will just also plead with you, Mr. DeAndrea, as a fellow contractor, to just take an extra step to make sure that the neighbor is also taken care of through your process. I recognize that as a contractor, if I extend time, labor is expensive. But I think my hope is that you'll be able to strike a balance. Ms. Flores, I appreciate your comments and also plead with you to be neighborly and understand the pain and suffering that Ms. Paul went through with, unfortunately, the seller of your property. And it's clear to me tonight that, at least what you demonstrated here tonight, that you're wanting to be a good neighbor. And so I implore you to demonstrate that as you go through this process of building your garage. Ms. Paul, I appreciate you coming out and sharing your feelings and how you were impacted previously and your concern of being impacted in the same negative way with this project. Unfortunately, as my colleagues have mentioned, the law doesn't provide us an opportunity on your appeal to make past judgment on this future project in this way, and I think in the way that you're looking for. But what I will share is that we have heard you, and we understand your concern, and my colleagues, specifically Councilmember Kalakai, has asked staff to pay extra attention to this project and making sure that the laws that we do have, the regulations we do have, are fully complied with. Now, I do have faith that the contractor and the neighbor will do the right thing and demonstrate to you that they are different than the seller. You're not going to experience the same thing that you experienced with the seller. And that is my hope. In regards to the payment and your communication, or what you shared in regards to your social security income and what you had to pay, I do encourage you tomorrow to reach out to City Hall, and they'll get you that information on our fee waiver. Thank you, Councilmember, on our fee waiver. If you do qualify, I encourage you to get the paperwork in. Staff is going to recognize and honor it retroactively as well. Right, so it took a lot of courage to come here and go through this process. It took a lot of courage to stand at the podium and share what you did, and I appreciate that courage. Unfortunately, as I shared, I will have to affirm the decision for the reasons stated, the Architectural Commission's decision, but I do encourage you to get that paperwork in if possible on that fee waiver and give your neighbors and the contractor the opportunity to demonstrate how they're different and how they're going to be better neighbors. So with that, I will bring it back to council for any last minute discussion. Seeing none, I'll accept the motion.
I'll move reading of the resolution that, reading the by title only that we adopted in number.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Claremont, California, denying the appeal of and affirming the Architectural Commission's decision to uphold Planning Division's approval of Architectural Staff Review 23 KS06 for the demolition, reconstruction, and expansion of the existing attached two-car garage at the single-family residence property located at 692 West 12th Street. The appellant was Melissa Paul.
I'll second.
All right, so we have first and second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Leon?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Medina?
Yes.
Councilmember Stark?
Yes.
Councilmember Flacco?
Yes.
Mayor Reese?
Yes, so the motion passes unanimously, and that brings us to our formal item number 6. And formally item number 6, as a reminder, I do have a conflict, so I will step out and the Mayor Pro Tem will take over. Meanwhile, we will take a 5-minute recess.
Before you do that, did you state the reason for your conflict? It's sometimes a good idea to state.
Oh, yeah, I can restate it for the record. As I stated before, I do have a conflict because I have real property within the legal boundaries of the subject property. And so with that, we will take the 5-minute recess.
Thank you. Thank you all. We'll reconvene the meeting and move on to item number 6. The consideration of a tentative track map for the 56-unit condominium project at 1030 West Foothill Boulevard. Can we have a staff report?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Medina, council members, Nicola Halati, Senior Planner of Claremont Planning Division. So the public hearing item before you now is tentative track map number 83751, subdivision of land and density bonus for a 56-unit townhome condominium development located at 1030 West Foothill Boulevard. The applicant is Olson Urban Housing LLC, also known as the Olson Company. So in my presentation, I'll describe the project, the purpose of the map, and then the affordability component for the project, because those are the relevant items before this commission. So I'll begin by just providing a summary of the project. So this is located on vacant property of 3.05 acres, the former Marie Calendar site. And here's a bullet point rundown of what the project entails. So a total of 56 for sale townhome condominium units consisting of 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units. That includes 12 live-work units. There's 10 separate buildings. 6 of them are proposed at 3 stories in height, and the remaining 4 are 2 stories. Overall, the project provides 112 covered parking spaces and 18 uncovered parking spaces on the property through both side-by-side and tandem parking for the covered parking. A total of 18,557 square footage of landscape, common, and private open space area, including a large landscape central common open space area at the center of the site, and some secondary open spaces, along with some landscape perimeter plantings. And the residential buildings have a Spanish Monterey influenced Spanish colonial architectural style with earth tone color schemes and clay tile roofs, whereas the live work buildings have an Art Deco, Art Moderne inspired design and contemporary commercial design elements. The project has undergone review by both architectural and planning commissions. So the project requires approval of the tentative track map, which is before you tonight. The project also requires architectural and site plan review approval by the Architectural Commission. So last summer in June, the applicant went before the Architectural Commission for a preliminary review, where they presented preliminary plans to the commission. allowing both staff and the commission to provide feedback on the design. Just 2 weeks ago, the Architectural Commission, they came back before the Architectural Commission where they voted unanimously to approve the project's architectural design and site plan. The commission felt that the applicant did a good job responding to the feedback that was provided in the summer of 2022 and that the architectural and design and the site plan met the standards of the code and would provide for a high quality project. The Planning Commission is the recommending body for track maps. Let me back it up. Our Architectural Commission also adopted the initial study mitigated negative declaration for the project as part of the project secret review. Earlier in September, the Planning Commission reviewed the project, reviewed the track map, and also reported on the mixed-use district development plan permit findings, and they voted to recommend the City Council approve the tentative track map and approve the secret document. And so that's why we're before you tonight for, again, both the review of the tentative track map and then also for how the project is going to satisfy the affordability requirements of both our inclusionary housing ordinance and state density bonus law. So the first part of our presentation will focus on the project before moving into the affordability component. So this is a view of the site. It's located near the southeast corner of Town Avenue and Foothill Boulevard. This was the home of the Marie Callender's restaurant that had been there since the 70s, stopped operating in either 2016 or 17 and was demolished in 2019. So here's what the site looks like today. Closer up, there is an existing alley along the southern perimeter of the site. It's an ingress-egress easement. Benefits the commercial, a couple of the commercial properties to the east of the site. The two existing drive approaches that serve the Marie Callender site remain. One of them would be closed off to make way for the project, and the other one would be used for the Foothill Boulevard's vehicular access to the site. And the alley would be slightly modified, but would also remain. These are both right turn in, right turn out, and they would remain so with implementation of the project. So here's the site plan, and I'll show this again one more time, but just to kind of walk you through it. So here we have 2 3-story live-work buildings that have sort of like a art, modern, contemporary architectural style. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 3-story buildings that provide side-by-side townhome units, so 8 units in each of these buildings. And then we have 2-story residential buildings that have the same Spanish revival influence style, and these provide flat style units, meaning they're all contained on the first and the second floor. You can see how the project provides 2 access points for vehicles, the one off Town Avenue, and then you see that access ingress-egress easement, slightly modified to provide a slight curve in order to provide some vegetative buffering along the southern property line. And then you have the Foothill Boulevard access, which is in the same location as it currently is. And you'll see that in terms of vehicular circulation, it's a bifurcated site plan, meaning car can't drive from this side of this part of the site to this part of the site, and in turn that provides for a large, ample, well-vegetated central open space area for the benefit of the project's residents. And so here you see the unit mix, again a combination of 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units ranging from about 1,300 square feet up to over 2,200 square feet in the live-work units, with a total of 56 units. So again, the site as it exists now, just some leftover vegetation, some existing trees. Looking west, this property's the western property line is the border between Claremont and Pomona. This is looking south down Town Avenue. You have the gas station at the corner. To the north of the site, you have the Stater Brothers Commercial Center. This is looking west down the alley, and then the adjacent use is a dental office with surface parking. So as I mentioned, this is the site of the Marie Callender's restaurant. The property is zoned mixed-use street, and the intent of the mixed-use zoning districts is to provide quality, dynamic, pedestrian-oriented environments through permitting a combination of commercial, office, service, entertainment, and residential uses, whether that be on the site itself or on adjacent sites within that zoning district. The Olson Company has completed 2 developments in Claremont, the Village Walk townhomes next to the packing house in 2004, and then Ivy Walk, which is at the southwest corner of Indian Hill Boulevard and Vista Oak Park intersection. That was completed in 2014. Olson Company maintains a positive reputation for delivering quality urban infill projects across Southern California, and they were the winner of the Elliott Homebuyer's Choice Award, which is sort of the industry standard for home buyer purchase and satisfaction. The latter part of this presentation will focus on Claremont's inclusionary housing ordinance and state density bonus law, but I wanted to sort of introduce those concepts here early on in the presentation. So, state density bonus law is a mechanism that's been around since the 80s and allows developers to construct additional density beyond which would otherwise be allowed and to obtain relief from development standards in exchange for providing affordable housing units. This applies to both for rent and for sale projects. Meanwhile, Claremont's inclusionary housing ordinance requires the provision of below market rate units in both for sale and for rent projects. In this case, the applicant aims to achieve a 20% increase in the project's residential density through either a combination of providing 4 below market rate low income units and paying in lieu fee for the fractional affordable unit, or providing 3 below market rate very low income units to satisfy the requirements of density bonus and our inclusionary housing ordinance. More on that to follow. Again, I want to sort of highlight the context for housing development, not only in Claremont or across the state of California. Earlier this summer, the City Council adopted our housing element update. The state and Department of Housing and Community Development has put in place aggressive targets for the provision of housing units, not only in Claremont, but in cities across the city, in jurisdictions across the state. In the case of Claremont, we have a regional housing need allocation of 1,711 units. We've made a dent in those. We've exceeded our above moderate income units through Village South Specific Plan. I'm sure this is still fresh in everyone's mind. But again, at the moderate, low income, extremely low income levels, we still have a considerable way to go. This project would begin to make a dent in those while providing much needed both market rate and below market rate housing. So again, I just wanted to show the site plan one more time as I dive into the specifics of the project, now that I've sort of provided that introduction. So this is what the westernmost live-work building would look like when driving east on Foothill Boulevard. So again, you see a 3-story building. There's 10 feet of space between the building and the property line. Be able to provide a sort of a patio that would add to the commercial feel of these units. And then in terms of these units, on the first floor you would have a live-work space, and I'll show the definition of live-work in our municipal code, with storefront windows allowing for views into these units, workspaces, and then from there the residential components would be above. There are 6 units in both of these buildings, this one and then the one you see in the background here on this rendering. So I'll go ahead and show the elevation. So this is the other building that wasn't depicted in the rendering. Again, sort of a art moderne influenced design that relies on color blocking, stepping in and out of these facades to create articulation and visual interest, a combination of window patternings, some awning elements, and then sort of contemporary storefront window treatments that don't give it a purely residential feel. But again, this is not quite retail. This isn't what exists along Foothill Boulevard. These are live-work units that could be used by the residents of these units for something that will most likely be a professional use, whether that be accountants, architects, designers, and would provide sort of a nice public interface here for the project. So there's the second live-work building. Again, you can see an architectural theme between the 2 buildings with sort of slight variation across the buildings and between the 2 buildings and across this building to create a nice contemporary look for the project's Foothill Boulevard frontage. So here's the definition of a live-work unit in the municipal code. And again, this isn't a mixed-use district, so staff was able to find that by providing these live-work units, it meets the definition of a mixed-use project. So I'll read out this definition because it is a pretty interesting one. A live-work unit means a residential dwelling unit where there is 1 or more rooms containing working space located within, adjacent to, or near the residential unit, and 1 or more individuals living in the residential units who regularly use the working space to earn their livelihood, usually in a professional or design-related activities. I'll back it up a little bit. The mixed-use districts were created in several spots in town as part of the general plan update in 2008. So you see that this definition comes from that era as well. Now, I don't think that the vision for the mixed-use district has been fully realized yet, but we think that this project gets us a little bit closer to creating a more pedestrian-oriented and sort of dynamic environment along Foothill Boulevard. So now we move on to the residential townhome buildings. Again, these have more of a Spanish-inspired architectural style. This is the one that's fronting Town Avenue. So in this case, these residential units all have small private yard areas. In this case, they'd be facing Town Avenue. There's about 15 feet between the property line and the face of the building. Again, you can see a lot of the character-defining features of the Spanish architectural style, such as the use of wood, in this case faux wood, to on the headers for these exposed rafter tails. Nice details such as this stucco grate over the balcony, a combination of wrought iron, sort of smooth stucco, and earth tones, shutters. Again, the commission was pleased to see this and found that it responded well to the direction they provided in summer of 2022. And so here are the elevations on those buildings. So again, this is what you would be looking at from Town Avenue. Again, there are 4 of these buildings. Only one of them faces Town Avenue. The rest of them face the interior of the site. On the back side of the building, you can see a combination of tandem-style garages and side-by-side garages. And then these are all 3-story townhome units where you would enter from the ground floor and then go up to the 2nd floor and the 3rd floor. The floor plans are in your packets. I didn't include them in this presentation. And then there's this rendering. This is moving to show the interior common open space area as well as the 2-story flat style units. So these would have garages on the 1st floor, 1 unit on the 1st floor that has private yard areas facing this interior open space area. And then when you move up to the 2nd floor, they would each have 2 units on the 2nd floors, providing those flat style units. I think that's something that the development community has heard as feedback from Claremont, that there should be more flat style units and less townhome units. And so also if I go back to the site plan, pardon me, I want to highlight the setbacks here. So by maintaining this ingress-egress easement, the project maintains a considerable setback distance from the single-family residential properties in the RS 10,000 zone to the south. Here is where you have a 30-foot setback between these 2 3-story buildings. That setback increases to just over 60 feet for these 4 2-story buildings, which have sort of driveways providing access to those garages, and then a strong vegetated buffer along the southern perimeter. And again, we see those elevations. So this would be the view from that alley, whereas this would be the elevation facing the interior common open space area. So I will move on to the open space area next. So this open space area transects pretty much the entirety of the site. It's fully secured along its perimeter through stucco walls and gates, and includes a variety of amenities, including barbecue area, seating areas, meandering concrete path with sort of passive lawn areas for recreation. And I also want to point out a grade difference. This property, like many in Claremont, has a substantial grade difference as you go from northeast to southwest. And so to handle that and to sort of grade the path to create these buildings, you're going to have a height difference between these 2 buildings. So that's why you see these stairs leading up to the front porches of the 3-story townhomes on the north side, and then you have a nice little private yard area for the 2-story buildings on the south side. And I'm going to show you a section drawing that kind of depicts that pretty well next. There's a secondary open space area that kind of serves as an extension of these patios along Foothill Boulevard, but would be secured. So well shaded, sort of secondary gathering area for either study or conversation. It's also worth pointing out that the applicant is requesting approval to build an 8-foot wall in lieu of a 6-foot wall along the shared frontage with the gas station at the corner, the 76 gas station. As noted in the staff report, the project provides a pretty good amount of landscaping, providing a total of 164 trees of various sizes across the project site. Includes coast live oak trees, olive trees, and then we're still working on a tree type that will provide effective screening while complying with SoCal Edison requirements along the southern property line, because there are power lines located just on the other side of the property, the southern property line. So this is an interior section. So this would be looking north through the common open space area. So again, you can see the patios, the stairs providing access to these patios, some of those amenities, and sort of the south-facing sort of front doors of these three-story townhome buildings at the interior of the site. So this is looking down that central open space area. You can see the distance between the three-story and the two-story buildings and some of those grade differences I was talking about, as well as the mature trees and how they would really create a generous, well-landscaped open space area of nearly 14,000 square feet. So this actually exceeds the open space requirement of the mixed-use 3 zone by almost 3 times. It's really one of the strongest suits of this project, the ability to provide almost like a park-like environment for the residents of this community. And this shows the section along the alley. So you can see here how the vegetative buffer would help obstruct views into the rear yards of the single-family properties to the south. Again, you have a 26-foot wide drive aisle. That setback would be a total of 30 feet when taking into account the landscaping at the foot of the building. And then on the two-story side of things, you have the 60-foot setback, and again, the ability to obstruct views and maintain the privacy of the residential properties to the south. In terms of CEQA, this project did go through a full CEQA process. There was an initial study prepared. It identified potential impacts related to biological resources, geology of the soils, noise, cultural resources, hazardous and hazardous materials, tribal cultural resources, but it also identified and developed mitigation measures that could be reduced, that when followed would reduce these impacts to less than significant levels. The ISM&D was circulated for public review. We received some public comment. They responded to in the final initial study, MND, and that document, which was adopted by the Architectural Commission on the 13th, finds that there is no substantial evidence that the project may result in any significant environmental impacts. And again, it includes a relatively short list of mitigation measures that the applicant will need to follow both during the construction process and once the project is constructed. So that's the project. Now I'm going to switch over to the affordability component. So again, the project is subject to Claremont's inclusionary housing ordinance and to state density bonus law. When taken together, they sort of provide a carrot and a stick approach where the Claremont's inclusionary housing ordinance requires below market rate units be provided in any housing development that includes more than 7 units. And then the state density bonus law is more of sort of a carrot, meaning an incentive-based approach to incorporating affordable units, below market rate units in market rate projects. With respect to our inclusionary housing ordinance, applicants submitted a preliminary application prior to the current inclusionary housing ordinance going into effect. And this is relevant because the prior IHO requires that 15% of the project's base units, meaning the amount of units permitted on this site prior to any density bonus, be restricted to moderate income units. But from there, it also allows the interchanging of moderate income and low income units at a 1.5 to 1 ratio. And it also allows for the payment of an in lieu fee for any fractional remainder units because you can't build a fractional unit. So in terms of our inclusionary housing ordinance, based on the density of 15 dwelling units per acre, which is called for in the mixed-use 3 district, you get 46 base units, 10% of that is 4.6 units, low-income units required. The inclusionary housing ordinance follows an equity share model where at first sale, the price is restricted to the low income level, and then upon the resale of the property, it would be sold at a market rate, and that increase in equity and the gap between the affordability level and the market sales price would be recouped by the city for inclusion in our affordable housing fund. So that's the equity share model that is codified in our inclusionary housing ordinance, both the prior one and the current one. As noted earlier in the presentation, state density bonus law is a mechanism that allows developers to construct additional density and get relief from development standards in exchange for providing affordable units. It provides for both concessions and waivers, which are similar but different. The waiver is relevant in the case of this project because the applicant is requesting a waiver for height. The mixed-use 3 district has a height requirement of 2 stories or 28 feet. They're requesting a waiver, which in government California State Code is defined as any waiver can request relief from any development standard that will have the effect of physically precluding development at the densities or with the concessions or incentives permitted. So again, with a 20% density bonus, we get to 56 units, and that's calculations shown here on the southern part of the site. So again, the base density of 46 units 20% of that is 9.2 units. That's required to be rounded up per the government statute. So we get a total density of 56 units, and that results in a density of 18.3 dwelling units per acre over the 50 dwelling units per acre that are otherwise called for in the mixed-use 3 district. So the applicant designed the project with that 20% density bonus and a waiver of the mixed-use 3 district's 2-story maximum height requirement. Again, as you saw, the project includes a combination of 2- and 3-story buildings, and I think the design decision that was made was to provide that really ample open space, which wouldn't be able to be provided if the entirety of the project was restricted to 2 stories in height. In using the incentives of the state density bonus law, they also get a slight reduction in their parking requirements pursuant to Senate Bill 1818, which are lower than the mixed-use 3 parking requirements. So per Senate Bill 1818, there's a total of 106 spaces required, which may be provided in tandem or uncovered configurations. In many respects, the applicant's goal in this project was to try to get close to the mixed-use 3 district's requirements. Whether through providing an excess of open space, providing additional parking beyond what's required per Senate Bill 1818. So in this case, the project provides 112 spaces in garages and 18 spaces open uncovered on the property, with 10 on the northern portion of the site and an additional 8 on the southern portion of the site. On the northern portion of the site, they're located north of that open space area between 2 of the buildings. And at the perimeter of the northern portion of the site, on the southern portion of the site, they're provided along the southern property line with 1 sort of additional space near the eastern property line. Additionally, there are 24 spaces in the driveways of the 2-story buildings, which can serve as guest parking for the residents of those units. So there's an important difference to note between our inclusionary housing ordinance, which allows you to pay a fee for any fractional units resulting from those density calculations. State density bonus law doesn't provide for the payment of in lieu fees for fractional units. Instead, it requires that those fractional units be rounded up. So there's a lot of nuances to that. So again, state density bonus law will require 5 units of low income per state density bonus law. Providing 5% of units at very low income would also trigger the 20% density bonus. So with that, we have a sort of 3 options for the council to consider in terms of how this project seeks to meet these affordability requirements while also getting the benefits of that 20% density bonus and the waiver of the height requirement of 2 stories up to 3 stories. So I'll turn to the city attorney, Ms. Patterson, to kind of walk you through the 3 options that are before you tonight. 2 of them were described in your staff report. Well, 1.5 of them were described in your staff report, and then sort of in conversations with the applicant, we've sort of presented a couple different options for how the affordability requirements can be met here.
All right, and I'm going to take over, give Mr. Halati a break. He's had a lot of time at the mic tonight. So this chart outlines the 3 different options that Olson has presented to the council on how they're going to meet the inclusionary housing and density bonus requirements. They're not ordered in terms of chronology, so actually option 3 is the one that's outlined in the staff report. Option 1 is the most straightforward. This is the one that checks all the boxes for state law and for the city's codes. If you go with option 1, it's effectively a mandatory density bonus. And so that would entail 3 very low income units on site. They would be subject to equity sharing agreements, which means that when they're sold, the owner keeps a portion of the proceeds and the city gets a portion of the proceeds, and after that they become market rate units. There would be no in lieu fees under this option. Anticipated sales prices of those 3 very low income units would be $12,700. And in order to adopt option 1, the only thing the council would need to do tonight is adopt the resolution that's attachment 8 in your staff report. This option, we should also note, is subject to Senate Bill 330 or SB 330, which is one of the new state housing laws that allows for extra protections for housing developments that meet all objective standards of state law and city codes. So in order to deny option 1, the council would need to provide direction on how to make what Senate Bill 330 refers to as adverse impact findings. And so that would entail both a finding that the project would have a specific adverse impact on the public health or safety as defined in SB 330, and that there's no feasible method to satisfactorily mitigate or avoid that adverse impact other than disapproval or reduction in density. So that's option one. Option two is very similar. The only difference is that instead of having the 3 very low-income units be subject to equity sharing agreements, Olson has offered to make them affordable in perpetuity. This is something that goes beyond what is contemplated in state density bonus law. It's not, state density bonus law and the city's ordinance currently call for equity sharing, and so in order to approve this option, you need to approve both the resolution and an ordinance that we haven't drafted yet. State law does allow you to have some flexibility, but it has to be done through adoption of an ordinance. And so that was one that the Olson Company indicated is their preference, but it came out after the staff report was prepared, and so we haven't drafted that ordinance yet. But you could adopt the resolution tonight and provide direction to staff to draft that ordinance and bring it back at your next reading or next meeting. Option 3 is the option that's outlined in the staff report. This is a mix and match that would provide 4 low-income units that would be affordable in perpetuity. And then the applicant would pay an in-lieu fee for the 0.6 fractional unit that is required to get to the 10% density bonus. And for this, you would need, the staff report has attachment A, which is the resolution, and attachment B, which is an ordinance that would effectuate this. So all 3 options would require adoption of the resolution, attachment A. Options 2 and 3 would involve adoption of an ordinance. 3 has an ordinance already drafted. 2, you need to provide direction to draft that. And staff's recommendation, looking at all 3 of these, I think all 3 are acceptable to staff, but if we were able to get our preference, our recommendation is option 3, and the applicant's recommended or preference is option 2, and I'll let them speak to why that is. Next slide. And we went over adverse impact findings. So we had a proposal, it's a little unusual to have 3 options in front of you, and so we had a suggestion for how to sort of sequence your decision making tonight. We would recommend that as an initial step, the council evaluate whether you want to approve the resolution approving the map at all. And so if the decision of the council is yes, we want to approve the map resolution, you can adopt that tonight. If you are not inclined to adopt that resolution, then staff is going to need direction on those adverse impact findings. And then after you've considered the resolution, our recommendation would be to consider whether you want to go with one of the more creative or off-menu approaches to density bonus and inclusionary housing, and either adopt an ordinance that effectuates option 2, the 3 very low in perpetuity, or option 3, the mix and match 4 low plus an in-lieu fee for the fractional unit. And so we've outlined those options for you on the next slide. And I'll just note that there's also a CEQA finding attached to this. It's a finding that the current approvals that you're considering are within the scope of the initial study and mitigated negative declaration that the Architectural Commission approved on September 13th. Those are all baked in to the approval documents. You're also welcome to make that finding separately in addition to adopting approval documents. And so these last slides are just, if you are inclined to make motions, they have the text of the resolution and the ordinance as part of your packet on the slide.
So that concludes our staff's presentation on the project. Happy to entertain questions from the council on any aspect of what we talked about.
Thank you for the report and the information. Is there any questions from council?
With regards to the equity share approach, at a $12,700 purchase price, if that person or family lived there for, what is it, like 30 years and sold it at the end of that period, what is the city's share versus what does the family walk away with?
Unless you want to take that one?
I'd have to pull up the ordinance for the exact, Director Johnson might have it in front of him. I think 40 years, the city has 0.
40 years.
It's 40 is 0 for the city. 30, I'm not
So
sure.
if that unit is worth $1 million at the end of that 40 years, they get $1 million and it's 0.
At 30 years.
30 years,
The city gets zero equity share. So year 1 to 10 is 100, 10 to 15 is 80%, 15 to 20, 60, 40, and it dials all the way down to 0 after 30 years.
So there's a strong incentive for them to stay there 30 years. I mean, as opposed to if their income situation improves, they may want to move out, and then if it's in perpetuity too, it provides an ongoing opportunity for affordable housing in that development. Okay. Second question I have with regards to the live-work units. So my understanding is, from discussion I had with the city manager, the live-work units initially are, primarily intended for the people who actually live there to use that unit. However, I'm understanding, if this is not correct, please correct it, that if for some reason they're not able to use the work part of the unit or don't want to, they could let someone else who lives in the complex use that unit?
So again, I'm just trying to stick to the definition of the code here, and you'll see containing working space located within, adjacent to, or near the residential units, and one or more individuals living in the residential units regularly use the working space to earn their livelihood, etc. So depending on how you read this thing, there may be an opportunity to lease out that space. I know that happens at other developments that include these type of units. I think both staff and the applicant would welcome direction from the council on what types of requirements can be baked into the project's CC&Rs. In discussions with the applicant, their intention has always been that the owner of that unit works in the unit. If there's some discussion on that matter, I think they're open to potentially allowing someone else in the unit at a certain point, allow them to use that unit. It is sort of fully independent. It has its own entrance. There's a small vestibule that you would enter, and you could enter into the live workspace or start going upstairs. It has its own bathroom. The intention is that it's used by the owner of the unit. I think if you read this definition, then maybe there's an opportunity for a small amount of flexibility. I think staff will welcome the council's direction on that question.
Yeah, I hope we can discuss it. I mean, I'll be honest, I was on council when we approved this general plan and that definition. If, I was new and didn't really appreciate all these things, if I had to do it over again, I probably would have questioned this definition because, I view, a mixed use more along the lines of what you see in Lauren there by Falcon Avenue, where they actually have retail on first floor and housing on upper levels. I kind of view that more, and again, because those businesses have the opportunity to employ like a larger workforce. If it's a live-work situation, it's almost no different than a home-based business. And of course, there's even limits to, I think, in this type of situation, people going to that location to do business because you have limited parking. That's not really the nature of it. So it's not. I kind of find it flying in the face of that because again, the challenge we have too is we have limited commercial space. And I know a lot of people accuse us when we approve housing development that you're going to make all this money. Well, there are permit fees in that when you're first going through the development, but as time goes on with Prop 13, property tax is fixed. We don't necessarily make a killing on residential. And at the end of the day, we need business, both from the standpoint of revenue generation, but also that provides jobs to the people who live here, especially if the whole concept of having housing here in the community for work, for people to live here and work here, you need the jobs here. And for eliminating work locations, that can be a challenge. Although I also acknowledge that times are changing too, and a lot of things are becoming online, or we don't have a lot of brick and mortar. So I can't honestly speak to what that perfect balance is, but it does give me a little bit of pause in terms of what I kind of view what mixed use should be with commercial there. But again, this definition is there, and if there's some thought we can give to that, because if somebody owns the unit and retires, and they're the only ones can use it, then what? It just stays vacant, and then it's not even in the spirit of that. On the other hand, too, if you limit who can rent it, it's going to be tough for them to probably find somebody to fill it also. So I hope when we get to that point, we can maybe have a discussion to at least see if we can improve upon the spirit, in my humble opinion, of what mixed use should be in terms of work and live in the same location.
Councilwoman Stark?
Thank you. I just have a follow-up question, following that line of thinking. But amending this definition within our code is outside of the scope of what we would be doing this evening, right? Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I'm not suggesting that was what I was thinking, I realize that this definition, but there's a way we can make it better at this, in terms of this particular.
No, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was keeping my bearings about me. Thank you very much.
I won't keep you here till 2 in the morning.
I just have a question for Ms. Patterson or whoever else can weigh in on this. I want to make sure that if we adopt the resolution approving the track map, then we're flexible with any of those three, even though our three affordability choices are different numbers, the unit count will remain the same regardless, right?
That is correct. It's a 56 unit project.
Right.
It's just gonna be the composition of affordable versus market. I will note that if all you do is adopt the resolution, it's gonna default to the option 1 option, 3 very low with equity sharing agreements.
Understand. Okay, that's all.
Any other questions?
I do have, I just want to, because I'm a little concerned about one thing. I mean, I think I made it clear by my line of questioning regarding the equity share versus the in perpetuity. I'm not supportive of equity share. If I go forward and vote on number 1 and then nobody wants to consider 2 and 3, I basically said I agree to the equity. So I guess I have a little concern about that, and also in our conversation, I hope I can get a feel for what you're all feeling, and if I can get a commitment from you, if you are all agreeable with 2 and 3, and if not, then I probably would vote no on 1 simply because I mean, we've had this conversation first, you know my feeling about that.
So I can go ahead and tell you, council member, I'm right with you.
Okay.
I prefer staff's recommendation for different reasons. I don't need to elaborate on them. We're talking about the track map, but I'm right there with you that I prefer the other choices.
Yeah, I'm not married to either of the other 2 choices, but I definitely like that concept. I'm grateful to Olson Company for bringing something forward, because this was my concern when we looked at revising our inclusionary housing ordinance, was I didn't like this lottery approach to doing this. And I feel that at some point, if there's a process like this that's a government benefit to somebody, there needs to be some payback to pay it forward to the next group of people that need it, as opposed to just losing that altogether and giving a windfall to somebody. So.
If it's okay with my colleagues, given the fact that at least 3 of us, I will state that I'm not in favor of option 1, if we can just eliminate that one from the discussion? Or do we just, as a group, proceed to talk? Perfect. And then with regards to questions, Mr. Hall, just one question regarding parking. At a total of 154 parking spaces, total with?
Yes, so 118 garages, 18 uncovered surface parking, and then another 24 in the driveways of these units right here.
With 154 total parking spaces, would you describe this development as parked adequately, overparked, or underparked?
In my judgment, and sort of in keeping with, again, not only the spirit of the mixed-use 3 districts, but also kind of taking into account what's around there, my opinion is that this project is well parked. With respects to, again, just a little nuance, with respects to the CEQA review in terms of the project's VMT, now that transportation impacts are being evaluated from a VMT model, not a level of service model of the intersections. By adding density based on the SGB COGS toolkit for assessing VMT impacts, the added density and the reduction of parking serves that VMT argument. In our response from Caltrans, when we circulated the ISMND, their feedback was reduce parking even more, which I'm not sure is a good idea in my opinion, but in my opinion, this project is sufficiently parked.
Thank you for that. Are there any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I will now open the public hearing for public comment. Are there any members of the public in the council chambers who wish to speak?
Hi, I'm Vicki Noble. I live down in West Arms. It's been really good and interesting to keep seeing these new projects that you're allowing to be developed and then potentially be available for low-income people. But in a way, for all of the projects the city's working on now, seniors are precluded from that because they need a one-story unit. So when you're talking about, super great deals, I mean, and there are those who need to have a super good deal because of low income, then it seems that there should be some kind of a requirement that, maybe one building would have a one-story at each end or something, but you're not including a one-story in the project at all. And the reason that even comes up is I had gone to look at the condos that were built on the corner by Elvira's, and I said, can you put one of the little elevators that old people do, going up the stairs? And you couldn't because they had built the stairwell too narrow. And then I said, well, could you come in and just put your own elevator in, just take that same amount of space to put an elevator in? And they said, no, because it's too small to do that. But usually when you're in buildings like that, it would be too much noise from the elevator. Your neighbor probably wouldn't like it. But anyway, I'm just hoping that, you can't do it with this one, I guess, but as more projects come in, I just hope that there will be some one-story options. And that also, I haven't heard you talk about the EV charging stations, and does the city have a requirement of that, or with the solar panels too? Thank you.
Ms. Noble, I appreciate the public comment, and if it's okay with the group, I will pause public comment as I had a misstep, and we'll allow the applicant to address the council.
Yes.
Good evening, council. Before I begin, I just wanted to see if staff gave a very thorough presentation, so given the late hour, if you'd like to bypass our presentation, we're perfectly fine with that. Otherwise, we're happy to give it, I'll leave it to the group.
My friend, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, I'm fine. I can go right to questions, because I think we understand that. Mr. Lawton did a very thorough.
Thank you, and would the colleagues?
Is there anything you feel that was left out that you wanted to share briefly, or are you satisfied? Actually, a lot of the things we presented in the prior meetings were incorporated by staff, so I think you did a great job.
Okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate that opportunity, so with that in mind, I would offer up to my colleagues for any questions. No questions, thank you for that. So at this time, we'll resume public comment, and again, if there's anyone in the chamber of orders that would like to address the 3 minutes.
Thank you, and when I said at the beginning how much I appreciate that you even halfway understand all of this, I wasn't just being nice. I know what you had to do to read this. But I also just want to take a quick minute of my time to give it to the Olson Group, is that to answer that woman's question, the 4 units in the back have what they call a flat. It's totally downstairs. And they do have the car charging thing, and they do have solar panels. But that's not what I'm here. I know that you think I'm here probably to oppose this development at this corner, but I'm not. There are some good reasons to see development. Neighbors have complained, and I have seen personally the homeless encampment at that spot. It's a great potential for mixed use with prime commercial frontage on Claremont's busiest business corridor. Corey, you and I were on the same plane on that. I even sent an email to them with maybe some ideas to make it more commercial. I have to laugh on that picture, how we want to make it a pedestrian street. You know how, walkable. You know how it says on that thing, are you a robot? Point, I said, find a picture with pedestrians. There aren't any. But we want to make it walkable, but there are ways of doing it. But let me jump in because I only have 3 minutes. It's a great potential mixed-use zone with prime commercial frontage on Claremont's busiest business corridor. And we are all very well of the affordable housing shortage. And Claremont definitely wants to do its share in providing solutions to that crisis. Hold those thoughts for a minute. I used to be a high school science teacher, and I worked with the National Science Foundation and the University of California in a grant program getting students to think, because they would get all excited with an idea and take off with it without really thinking it through. But the bigger problem was they would be so afraid they'd fail that they didn't even try. So when I look at this project, I think of the submersible. He thought that idea was so great. And at the last minute, he still went on, Stockton Rush, the guy with this Titan. That's why I believe that this project should be taken back to the drawing board for a couple of reasons. I think Olson's done a fabulous job on Ivy Walk, and I think they should incorporate some of those elements. But my big concern is the serious traffic and safety congestion at what is arguably one of the most impacted intersections in the city. This project has never been reviewed and approved by the City Traffic and Transportation Commission. If you give me more time, I will delineate some of the points that I feel need to be addressed. But not only are we allowing a high-density project at this corner, we are allowing the project an additional whopping 20% more units. I believe that before the council approves, I did realize, I'm not sure the difference between a tentative tract and a preliminary application, but I can tell you if you approve the preliminary application, you can't go back and ask them to change anything. But I realize tentative tract is not the same thing. I'm hoping someone else can square it away for me. But that's what I thought this might be. There should be a full safety review and by the Traffic and Transportation Committee.
It's too late, you have reached 3 minutes.
Oh no! I'm only on page 5. Well, that's it. But I will say that the traffic thing was the main thing, and I can give you more. Do you have any questions that maybe I could answer on page 9?
Thank you for your time, appreciate it. Thank you. Anyone else in-house that would like to address the council? Seeing none, we will then move on to Zoom participants. Is there anyone on Zoom?
There are no raised hands wishing to speak.
I will now close public comment on this hearing and bring the discussion back to the council. Who'd like to start us off? Councilman Plakai.
And I guess, I didn't ask the applicant, when he was at the podium, but, do you have any thoughts on the, commercial, how we could, the units, how we could strengthen that, to assure that, as much as possible, they'll be used in a good way, to provide business opportunities, and, if somebody retires, that, there's a reasonable way to have somebody go in there, to be able to use it. Are there still even some possibilities of something more along the lines of, if you're familiar with the project I was referring to Laverne, where they have full-fledged, commercial on the first floor with residential on the second floor? I don't know.
And good evening, council members, Mayor Pro Tem Medina, council, good to see you again. In my former life, I worked for the city of Santa Ana. We did mixed-use lofts with the Olson Company, and we targeted creative professionals because we were building an artist village. It was very successful. 2/3 of our buyers were in that realm. At this location, it's a tougher sell because you're not within a designated high-intensity retail area of the city. But you want that commercial look and feel, and you want that space to be used either by work-at-home individuals, and there are a lot of those and more than there ever were, as well as others. You might have counselors, you might have an attorney, those who provide the type of service and have clients coming in from time to time. I think that's the most likely user of that space in the immediate future. We're happy to work with staff on CC&Rs that allow for maybe more options and others perhaps in the community to lease that space, to encourage more of a commercial use than just those who live in the unit. So organically that could happen over time, but I really think given the location, the highest use, the most likely use is going to be those who are either working from home or have a very small profession
acknowledge that this may not be the strongest location for this type of live-work type of development. I guess you're thinking more like something along the lines of our village, where you've got a commercial a little bit stronger commercial district.
With heavy retail commercial is what I meant, which I think is what you're getting at.
Right.
At this moment, that type of use, especially restricting the use to narrow that focus, I don't think today that's a real fit. But could the CCNRs allow for that over time? Because there's a lot of development going on in the area, not just in Claremont. Maybe that's a window of opportunity in the long run to enable, that more commercial focus and more intensive use occur, as long as it's managed properly and you don't want it affecting the residents in those units. So there's a balance there, maybe that we could find and work with staff on in crafting the CCNR.
Yeah, I don't have any easy answers there, but I'd like to give that direction. And one thing I would credit you with is, again, somebody's finally come forward with a concept for affordable housing and where there can be in perpetuity versus the equity sharing, which again, and I don't know, maybe we'll find out that there's some challenges with the perpetuity over time, but I know that I have concerns about the equity sharing version. So you brought something creative there, and I'm hoping that with staff, you can come up with something creative to ensure that, we don't end up with empty spaces or more than anything is my greatest concern.
Yeah, and I don't think you're gonna have that. I think those that buy there are gonna make very good use of that space. And again, the perpetual capacity, not a live capacity.
Right.
And you raise a great point with the perpetual affordability, and I apologize that a couple of these options came up so late in the game, but the reason it came up is because of the benefit, the community benefit with a perpetually affordable unit. And not just that, not just low income, but very low income, which is so rare for a for sale product. And as we really talked to staff and the staff report came together and we saw that heightened level of support emerging, we said, look, there's another avenue here that's a lot cleaner than asking for the in lieu fee to count towards that 10% trigger density bonus. And that's doing 3 very low income units where you don't have to adopt an ordinance on top of that to count the fee towards that 10%. So we say, hey, how about this option where we have very low income units, perpetually affordable, with a very clean triggering of state density bonus law without the need to get more creative as we work up to that point. And I appreciate your willingness to consider that.
And staff mentioned you were going to present why you like your option over there. Could you maybe speak to that?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. The key things are, it's community benefit, the perpetual affordability, which as a former community development director like Brad, I know that we fought hard to make sure that units have the longest affordability timeframe, because the city wanted to keep the credit for those units and not have someone move in 2 years, divide up the equity, and you lose that unit in your inventory. So we saw that opportunity, and then we saw that we were asking the council to take some extra steps to trigger the density bonus. And we said, gee, there's another way to do this, and that's with very low income units, where it's just automatic. And so it's not, it's just an easier course to get that fulfilled, to fulfill that requirement, and also provide this long-term benefit on the perpetual affordability at a lower level of affordability, which is very difficult to get in a for-sale product.
And again, to confirm what Mrs. Trulak was saying, you've got the one level units in there, so it does provide opportunities for seniors, and you're addressing also the charging abilities for electric vehicles.
And those single-story units are very, very well received.
Perfect. Well, one last question more to staff. Can staff, again, remind me the number of units we have at town in baseline?
In the project of the street?
Correct.
I have to look at my housing element document, Brad, do you know off the top of your head?
I think it's around 100.
Yeah, I'm sure it's more than that. The reason I just bring that up, I'm sensitive to traffic, but there's more units up there, and I don't see traffic jams coming out of there. And I know people have concerns when you have that many people living, but it's it's not like a sporting event where everybody shows up at the same time and leaves at the same time. It tends to be dispersed throughout the day. So I just don't see that happening. And this also has access off of town as well as Foothill, so it kind of balances all of that out. So I'm gonna trust that this is not gonna have the, not dismissing Mrs. Tulak's concerns, but just from seeing some of these other developments, some of which are even larger, on a similar situation in town baseline, I don't necessarily see that being, a major issue, if you wanna comment.
Sure, so just to confirm the number of units at Meadow Park at a baseline in town, so 95 units in that development. And then as part of the ISM&D, the applicant consultant prepared a traffic study that evaluated the impacts of the intersections. Our consultant Advantic peer reviewed those findings. Again, that's also sort of beyond the scope of what SEGA asked for under this new VMT model. So traffic impacts were assessed and analyzed. And the study found there would be nominal increases to the queuing amount that generally could be handled by the length of those lanes. A couple of mitigation measures, a keep clear painted on the road at Town Avenue, where those folks will be coming out and coming in on that side of the site, and then painting red along the curb between the project entrance and Amador on the east side of the street, so there's not folks parking there that's within the city of Pomona, so you don't obstruct views, vehicles don't have, you're not obstructing views for folks trying to make that right turn out there on Town Avenue.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stark.
Thank you so much. Actually, Councilmember Kaleka asked a lot of the questions I wanted to ask, so I just really have a comment, if that's okay with you. I wanted to make one comment directly to Mrs. Tulak's concerns, and that is that that we have, because this is a SB 330, there's only allowed to be 5 public meetings. And so because actually maybe I should have staff explain it instead of me.
Yes, I know.
Why don't I do that? Would you explain the 5 meetings?
I do know.
Okay. And then also I just want to make it clear, and maybe staff could do this rather than me, that the traffic, that because that it wasn't seen by our commission doesn't mean that the engineering of the streets wasn't fully vetted and according to code, and to the safest, highest degree that it could be, even so much so that when Pomona made requests for their neighbors, this project was able to comply with that. And that is something that I've been impressed with again and again, going through both the staff report and the ISM&D, was how very responsive the project has been. So that was just my comment at this point. And then I would also, with the ample parking as well, and I just appreciate that for the commercial use. And I wanted to make the comment that the commercial office use is actually quite consistent with the other uses in the area, like across the street, just above the grocery store. And I wanted to just say that I am very ready to address the tentative track map and move into the discussion about which housing options and which affordable options we were going to go with. So, if there's no further discussion, I would love to move that set of resolution.
I do want to comment before we go, just because people know these days I'm very scrutinizing of development, and I'm not just willy-nilly approving things, but the one thing that I'm grateful for is at least we're capping this at 3 stories. People know that I've had concerns about 4 stories anywhere in town. I'm not fond of that type of development, so that's one thing I'm grateful here. Not to mention the fact that there's also some 2-story in here, and clearly part of the thought that was given to that, I believe, was neighborhood that's adjacent, which I give some credit again to the Olson Company. I think they clearly listened to neighbors, because I don't see an angry chamber full of residents here, which we do have on projects, and I don't see that people would have missed this. I'm sure if there were people upset about this, they would be here. So I very much respect that. I respect, again, the fact that we have a new approach to affordable housing with this perpetuity proposal, and I hope it goes well. I hope it may be something that we can find. Maybe that's something that I can support, the inclusionary housing ordinance, if we have a perpetuity approach as opposed to the equity share, which I just don't feel comfortable with in light of what I identified earlier. I wish it had a little bit more of the type of business along Fiddle Corridor, but there's so much good in this I have to acknowledge. I mean, when I first was, I'll be honest, when I first was speaking to the city manager, I was very skeptical because, again, I've been very scrutinizing development, but I think, in light of what we're seeing now with some of these other developments, what I've heard tonight, what I'm seeing tonight, what I'm viewing here, I'm grateful as opposed to some of the alternatives. So thank you to Olson Company, and frankly, if this becomes a success, I guess I can ask you buy all the remaining properties in Claremont, how you guys do it, because it seems like maybe you all do it better, you know how to work with the neighbors and do some creative things, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Leon?
Just to piggyback off of my colleagues' remarks, I want to thank the representatives from the Olson Company who are here tonight. I want to thank you for going far above and beyond what code said you had to do and what density bonus or inclusionary ordinance said you had to do. You came here with a project that was very sensitive to the neighbors. It's beautiful. It goes far above and beyond in terms of open space, landscaping, trees, setbacks, circulation. And then you have given us some choices on how to fulfill our obligation to provide affordable housing in our community. And so the fact that you came with a really good proposal, went far above and beyond what was legally required of you, I want to express sincere gratitude for that. And so I'm also prepared to move forward if there are no others.
We can do so quickly. If I may, just a quick comment. I want to echo my colleagues. At some point at the beginning of the meeting, we talked about partners and being a community, and it's evident that the Olson Group is a partner with the development that's going on here. When we talk about mixed use, there's a lot of mix, as my colleague had just mentioned. There's a lot of great things in this property, and that's because staff and the Olson Group work together with each other as well as the community, and it shows that you listen well, and more so, the choices are exceptional. It's now which is the best option, so we really appreciate putting your best foot forward on this here, and with that, I will entertain a motion.
I'm happy to move the resolution that the reading be waived and that the resolution be adopted in number.
Can we also add direction that staff will work with the Olson Company to develop CCNRs relative to the business units to make that as strong?
Do you want to make the resolution instead? I mean,
if you just accept that amendment, I'll second it.
I accept that amendment.
Second.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Claremont, California, approving tentative tract map number 83751 for a 56-unit condominium development project on a 3.05 acre site located at 1030 West Foothill Boulevard.
Second.
Motion. We have a motion and a second. Do we have a roll call?
Councilmember Palaca?
Yes.
Councilmember Stark?
Yes.
Councilmember Milano?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Medina?
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion passes unanimously, and we'll move on to the ordinance.
Well, actually, we haven't decided if two or three, so option 2 or 3. I don't have a strong preference either way. If somebody, I'm just grateful for the concept. So
So the discussion with regards to option 2 or 3.
We're engaging in discussion right now?
Yes.
Absolutely, Councilor Stark.
Thank you. I also want to express appreciation for these creative and different ideas, even though they were coming at the very last second. Makes it hard to think about, but I want to discuss the reasons why I prefer option 3 over option 2, if you don't mind, and that is I'm a little bit worried about
sort of creating and for want of a better word, I'm just gonna use sort of like an artificial price for the very low unit in perpetuity. And I feel it gives me some pause thinking about how the part of building equity is by investing in buying, and that we have people who buy in at a very low price and then being a part of our community and then leaving and not having any equity. It feels almost like it's like a rental, but they're buying it. And so that I have some problems with it. And also, to be quite honest, I also am struggling a little bit with how we're gonna manage it in perpetuity. But I prefer option 3 per staff's recommendation for the low in perpetuity. I feel like while this is still really helping someone for households buy in, and yet we're also still getting the in lieu fees, which will help our rental program and other programs that we have moving towards affordable housing. And I realize I'm not doing a very good job articulating this, but it just feels, that if we're chipping away, that providing 4 at the low, anyways, I've said enough, but then without being very articulate, I am leaning towards 3 over 2 because I'm a little bit concerned about just buying into that.
No, I hear you actually, and I know that was always the challenge with regards to, how that would work, because the point was if there's no equity, they don't have money to invest back into the property potentially. So I realize there's a balance, and this could end up being a challenging situation. Then again, my understanding is we're working with a nonprofit to help manage that, correct? Is that how this works, correct?
So that is the proposal, and that would be worked out with staff through the inclusionary housing agreement.
But my only thought is, again, sorry to throw a wrench in the works, maybe not, maybe something that still could be discussed and adjusted later. But this is a percentage of the market rate currently. Could always be a percentage of the market rate. So if the market rate goes up, there is a little bit, but not where it's like the market rate's not $1 million and they've lived there 30 years and they get the full $1 million sort of a thing. But whatever, if it's 20% of market rate, then whatever the market rate is at that time, it's 20%. So there may be a little bit, so it at least keeps it, reasonable, but not where somebody's making a windfall unreasonably. And it still keeps it at a price that's affordable for at any given time for the next people that are coming in. So that's a thought too. I don't know if that can be incorporated in the idea. Then again, nonprofits may have their model, and I don't mean to throw a wrench in the works either there, but just a thought, because I hear what Jennifer's saying, and I know that that's been a concern in the past.
So yeah, it's certainly a nuanced conversation, and I think there's pros and cons to the in perpetuity model and the equity share model. So we had conversations with the applicant and with Kathy Head at Kaiser Marston, our consultant. So she had pretty frank concerns about the very low income in perpetuity, just based on the amount of money that folks in that income level earn, right? So here is I think it's a 2023 table that identifies the area median income and the income levels of sort of low income versus very low income. And so I'm sort of saying this, I don't mean to speak out of turn. I know for the applicant it's very important to get their MAP approval, which you granted. So we can sort of talk sort of freely about this and which sort of option the city adopted to the inclusionary housing ordinance that's baked into density bonus law and sort of that in perpetuity. So for very low income households, earning $63,000 for a household of 4, with those numbers going down, Kathy shared there were some concerns about not being sort of really an upside for the owners of that property in this in perpetuity model. And she voiced concerns about when it comes time to continue paying the HOA dues and may need to take on a capital project for some sort of repairs, that becomes hard for that household earning that amount, right? And home ownership is viewed as an investment in equity. I think some of those concerns are a little bit more mitigated with a low income household. I mean, you see the numbers here, and it's a significant difference, right, between these two income levels. And if you want to see some tables on and later on that kind of show how that sales price was calculated and sort of the amount available for mortgage service for a low income household versus a very low income household. So those are sort of the conversation that we've been having over the past couple of days, both with the applicant and with Cathy Ed and all together on Zoom calls, and I want you all to be informed on sort of the pros and the cons. And there's a lot of nuances that maybe I'm not articulating well either that maybe the applicant might want to speak to.
And council, I think one of the other considerations too is that somebody buying a unit in perpetuity, it still does give them the opportunity to build equity. They're making mortgage payments every month and paying down the principal on the mortgage. It's just that the equity that they'll build is commensurate with what they're actually paying for the unit when they first buy it.
Thank you, Mr. Nalani. Mr. Reese, you want to add to that?
Just a quick comment, and either way, in whatever the council wants to do, we're fine. Let me just say that, you know what our preference is, but just wanted to point out, when you look at the two options for the anticipated sales price, in Los Angeles County, the assessor takes a look at the value of these units, and you have to pay property taxes, and that's included in the formula that's used to figure out what net amount of that income you have to make a mortgage payment. Now, in Los Angeles County, apparently in some places, with that equity sharing provision, because at the first sale, it goes to market rate, right? The assessor apparently is assessing the value at the market rate day one. So that very low income resident is having to pay an exorbitant property tax. Olson we haven't had to do that in our communities. So we've gone to the LA County assessor, we just did it in Compton, and said, that's not fair, we don't think it's legal. No matter whether that's perpetual or equity share, the property tax should be based on the amount paid for the property. And if you do that, then you have more available for a mortgage, and the price that's paid for the unit is higher. The other point that the city manager brought up is a very important one. Incomes continue to rise over time. Interest rates right now are on the high side. That nobody knows where they're going to be. Are they going to settle a little bit? They settle a little bit, value of that unit goes up for the next buyer, which leaves more equity for the initial owner, because we're just at a time in the market when things are really tight, whether you're at 90 or 12,000. So I just wanted to point that out. Again, totally up to the council. We're very thankful that you're considering this, and I'm available to answer any other questions.
I'll just weigh in with my colleagues that I agree. To my colleagues, I agree with everything that you've already said. And I just want to add one thing to it, which is that this came up when we revised our ordinance in 2021. And I remember very specifically what Kathy had said to us at that time. She said very low is really difficult to work in purchase, but it works fine in rental. And the reason is the numbers are very hard to work out. But here's the thing. So when she was describing why it's a challenge, she said that basically the deep level of affordability creates this huge windfall for the lottery. So whoever applies and gets it, they're getting this massive value for this huge reduction in what they pay. And then the challenge is that if we go with option 2, I guess what I see here is we're giving huge subsidy to like 3 households. But if we do option 4, we're giving a little bit less subsidy, but still huge subsidy nonetheless, but huge help for 4 households. But then with that fee, we can do a lot of good. We can help a lot of people. And I'll leave it to us to figure out later on what we're gonna do. We don't need to decide that tonight. I'll just give you an example. $157,000, we authorized an ADU grant program. If you rent the ADU affordably, the applications were submitted, the money was spoken for in a week. I mean, we could do 8 new ADUs. We can fund 8 new households with an ADU with this fee. Or we can help 50 households with rental assistance. If we have another series of like really bad season where gas bills are like 500 times what they normally are, and it's just pay your rent or pay your gas bill, but you don't qualify for low income subsidy, you're in trouble. We can help 50 households with this kind of money. So I feel like option 2 is this huge amount of financial help for a small amount of people. But option 3 is a little bit less help, but we can potentially help way more people. And that's why I like option number 3. And so, just put that for now.
This conversation's been helpful, I'm on board.
Yeah, thank you. If I'm hearing my colleagues correctly, and I do want to say my comments that I appreciate the comments from my colleagues here, because option 3, and then this is what we look at, as I said earlier, when an applicant brings really good options, we're basically looking at what's good or better, and those are great choices, great options for us to have. There isn't a how can we make a round peg fit in a square hole? This is, we've got a great square and a great hole, let's just figure out which one we want. And with that, I believe that we're all in agreement that option 3 may be the best option for our community, and take care and have a motion for that.
So with that, I'll move reading of the actual ordinance that we have tonight. That reading be by title only, that it be placed on first reading, referred to the city attorney for not less than 5 days.
Just a quick clarification, there was a C and D to the staff recommendation as well, that's just confirming the fee and confirming the sequel finding.
So moving C and D as well.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Claremont, California, authorizing the Director of Community Development to prepare and execute density bonus housing agreement related to the 56-unit condominium development located at 1030 West Foothill Boulevard by and between the City of Claremont and Olson Urban Housing LLC.
I'll second.
Motion and second, we have a roll call.
Councilmember Palaika?
Yes.
Councilmember Stark?
Yes.
Councilmember Liano?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Medina?
Yes. The motion passes unanimously. There are no other ordinances on the agenda. There are no additional items for this evening, and we have no continued public comment from earlier today. There are no current commission vacancies. Thank you for those that have volunteered their time for the ad hoc for appointing the new commissioners. But for anyone interested in applying to be a commissioner, please visit the city website or contact the city clerk's office for any application or more information. Applications are continuously being accepted and will be kept on file and considered whenever there is a vacancy. The next regular scheduled council meeting will be on October 10th. There is no further business. We are adjourned.
Hey, great job. You did all the business.